Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode, I don't even know what episode this is. 138? 138. Right. My name is Colin Moriarty, joined as always by the Cavalier, Chris Raygun. Chris, how are you today?
Doing pretty good.
Yeah?
Pretty good. Same old, same old. Yeah. Nothing new.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing new for any of us to report. Is that right, Dustin? You're here with us as well this week, Dustin?
Yeah, no, I mean, I spilled some water on my shirt, and it dried mostly. I was like nervous about looking like an idiot, and I thought the best way was just to acknowledge that I'm an idiot right off the bat.
Yeah.
You know?
It's tough. It's tough sometimes.
It's very tough. Yeah.
Life's tough sometimes. Well, it's good to see you guys. It's good to be here with all of you. I did put out a plea on Twitter yesterday for when we're recording this, anticipating in Central Virginia here, just terrible ice storms and snowstorms. Now, I want to be clear. It's not like it is in Texas right now. Virginia, it snows and gets ice every year. It's not like it's a heinous situation, but it could cause power outages, but we're totally fine. So we're recording on schedule. Is the weather okay by you, Dustin? Because I know we're kind of experiencing the same sort of fronts here.
We got a little bit of a dusting. We've been getting some ice and, a little snow. Nothing crazy, though.
Well, good. Chris.
Can't relate.
I don't know. Yeah.
Can't relate.
I keep looking at the maps, and when they put the map of the country up with all the different heat and the freezing temperatures and whatever, and California it's cold, but it's not like it is anywhere else. So
yeah, no, it's like kind of windy, but that's like
sure.
That's like basically it.
But you're all quarantined and have been for a year, so that's kind of the trade-off. Living in California. But everyone out there, thank you so much for joining us on our weekly PlayStation podcast, supported on Patreon, I should say, patreon.com/laststandmedia. More than 10,000 of you over there. Thank you so much for your love, kindness, and support. Of course, you can support us over there. Get Sacred Symbols Plus, our weekly supplemental podcast. Last week, Sacred Symbols Plus was the Hitman 3 spoiler cast and review discussion. How did that go, guys? You guys were on that with Maddie, I believe.
Yeah.
I think it went pretty good. Yeah, I feel pretty good about it.
Good. We have a new term, Colin. Now we are when the show specifically, when the stars align and it's myself, Chris, and Maddie, we are DMC. So
nice.
Yeah, it's pretty wonderful.
Like the DeLorean, right?
I was thinking more like Devil May Cry.
Yeah, of course. I always think about that with Ryan McCaffrey because he's a buddy of mine. He has DMC Ryan as his name, which was such a huge mistake on his part, right? Because just because of where he is in the realm he's in, everyone thinks he's a big Devil May Cry fan, which I think is like the furthest thing from Ryan McCaffrey's interests.
Yeah, he doesn't seem like I wouldn't peg him for a Devil May Cry person.
I don't think he plays the weeby stuff, but
no.
Well, nonetheless, thank you over there for supporting us for Sacred Symbols Plus. Next week, we're going to do, I think, an episode on Habroxia 2. I'm going to talk more about this, though, when we talk about the news in a little while, because I would like to get an episode in about this 6 Days in Fallujah stuff, but I don't know if that's going to be possible, so we'll see what happens. But, hey, I wanted to read this letter out from Joe Rodri, who wrote into us on Patreon. And remember, if you support us on there, you can write into the show. Says, hey boys, yesterday I was listening to the most recent episode while driving when all of a sudden someone rear-ended me, causing a wreck with us and a third car. Luckily, no one was hurt and my car isn't too badly fucked up. Not saying that your voices casted a protective halo around me, but if that's the case, please keep working your voodoo magic for those of us on the road. Cheers, lad. Well, what do you think? I mean, do you think we cast some sort of... I kind of resent the term voodoo. I'm more of just a straight black magician.
Yeah.
And I don't mean black skin color. I mean black...
Yeah,
magic.
Black magic.
Sure.
Correct.
I think about this often. This specific scenario that Joe brought up here, I think about it in the reverse a lot. Whereas, like, how many times have people been listening to a podcast of mine where, like, something funny might happen and then they burst out laughing, but they're driving and then they careen off a bridge and die. So it's like the opposite of a protective halo, I guess.
We had that joke for old school Podcast Beyond listeners back at IGN 10 plus years ago. We had the bus full of nuns joke that we used to say, where we would picture that a bus full of nuns was driving and, driving the bus. And then we said something and they spun off the road. I don't know why or where that came from, but That's what it reminded me of.
I do like the idea of a bus full of nuns listening to a video game podcast.
Me too.
In a bus.
I love that.
That's awesome.
I mean, how bored are you if you're a man or woman of the cloth? You're pretty bored. And I feel like you need video games.
Especially if you're a nun on the clock. I imagine that's particularly like, what do you even do at that point?
I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
I'm imagining someone's final moments, like they're hearing you guys talk about Chris's bed size, and then they hear Chris splurging on a bed, and then that's it. That their time on planet Earth is done, and that's how it ended.
Tragic.
I laughed too because he said splurge on the bed. It's really splooging if we wanted to be technical, the verb, but
they knew what you meant.
That's enough.
Yeah,
right.
For me to
close enough.
Yeah, to make me laugh. So, well, thank you to the nuns and all the people of Catholic persuasion and other religious orders listening to our show. Hope you're doing well out there. Now, Chris, I wanted to call this out for you. You have a toy, like some sort of action figure type thing.
Yeah,
that's
it's like
available now.
It's like a Funko Pop type collectible thing. The guys over at U2's is the company. They approached me like a couple months ago because I saw a lot of like my friends and like colleagues getting these pop figures made, and I'm like, what the hell is this, like a thing that's happening? And I was like, I jokingly tweeted like, I'm never gonna get one of these because they would never find a way to make me short enough. And they just reached out, and then they made it a real thing. I don't know if will this show up in like the actual video, like on the video podcast.
That's a Dustin.
I'm trying
question.
to. Okay, I've made you full screen. I don't think I can see.
I'm not gonna bother bringing it, but it's this it's like a little Funko Pop thing. It's really cool. I'm flattered by it. It's a little weird to see yourself in collectible form. That's like not something that I anticipated ever seeing. So it is one of those things. It's like, what did I do really to deserve this at all? You know,
it's a fair question.
Yeah, whatever.
Especially because the likeness is so impressive. Because when I especially like looking at old Star Wars figures, not even the ones from the 70s and 80s, but if you look at the ones from the mid 90s, like if you look at Princess Leia, for instance, from 1990, someone go look up Princess Leia in 1995. She looks like it's horrifying. So it's amazing that they couldn't get Hasbro couldn't get Carrie Fisher or Kenner couldn't get Carrie Fisher right, and yet U2's can just nail Chris Ray Gun's likeness for one of 1,000 of these things or whatever. So that's very cool. Will you send me one?
Yeah. I'm getting a bunch of them to ship out and give away. So I have to sign them too. So that's gonna be fun.
Yeah, but please do. I mean, because I'm finally getting things together back here. So I think I'm gonna put a shelf here.
Ooh.
And maybe we'll adorn it. What do you want, Rush? It's time for you to get out of here. Go get a job. All right. Well, congratulations to Chris on his toy. Go check it. There's a YouTube video. You can go see it in there. And then, so a quick correction for you as well, Chris, from last week. People wrote in about this. Jake Diagrella wrote in and said, "Good day to you, cunning Colin, crafty Chris, and dastard Dustin." Well, dastardly would have been better there. I have a correction. Last week, Chris mentioned that he was surprised at how smooth Crash 4 ran at 30 frames. Crash 4 actually does run in 60 on PS4 Pro through PS5 backwards compatibility. The base PS4 is unlocked at anywhere between 30 and 40. This makes the native PS5 upgrade for the game a little unnecessary. But hey, at least it's a free upgrade.
Yeah, so that's kind of the thing that confused me, because I remember seeing, I think that's probably what threw me off, is because I saw news about that like PS5 upgrade for Crash Bandicoot, and I was like, and they said like, oh yeah, 60 frames in 4K, and it's like, oh well, that clearly must mean, like my assumption would be then that the PS4 version was 30 frames in 4K or 30 frames in, whatever the hell resolution they chose to run it at. But yeah, I mean, I guess I was wrong. I guess that explains a lot, because if it's between 30 and 40 frames, then like that would explain why I was like, this doesn't feel like 60, but it's really smooth. That would explain why I was confused, but yeah. Well,
it really doesn't matter very much.
Yeah.
But I do want to be correct.
That's fair,
as much as we can be.
Sure.
All right, there's a few just kind of quick things I wanted to touch on before we get into what we're playing. Let's see how quick it goes or not. Game related stuff, but stuff that I didn't feel like writing up for the news because I don't know if it's big enough. But the first thing I wanted to share was that Bokeh Game Studio. So We talked about these guys a few weeks ago. It's Bokeh. It's a Japanese game studio founded by Keiichiro Toyama. And people have been wondering what he's doing. Toyama, of course, is best known for his work at Sony, longtime work at Sony with Siren and Gravity Rush. And he also worked as the director and writer of the original Silent Hill. So anyway, people are curious about what he's been doing. And they posted a 10-minute video in Japanese on their YouTube channel. And so you guys can go look it up. Just look for Bokeh and then Keiichiro Toyama. And then if you go on closed captions, people have put English captions in there. I implore people to do this if you're a fan, because it's clear he's working on some new horror series. And the way he talks about it is very, very interesting, including, I guess, this kind of obsession or this interest he's kind of drawn up in the so-called death game, like Danganronpa. So it'll be cool to see more of that, but I wanted to encourage everyone to go check that out if you want, because he keeps coming up on our show. And Chris, I wanted to throw this one at you, although Dustin, you might have insight into this as well. Bungie just announced a few hours ago from when we're even recording this, that they are injecting a ton of money in investments into their studio, including, and I think this is the craziest part, I'm reading it right now. Their Bungie HQ in Washington is 84,000 square feet. When they're done, it's going to be 208,000 square feet.
Holy shit.
They're also going to open up a studio in Amsterdam, and this will be for publishing and marketing mostly. So the games will continue to be made in Washington for the most part. And the biggest thing here is, from my point of view, is not only the injection of new personnel and new talent at the top, but they're going to continue to develop, they say long-term development, in quotes, of Destiny 2, tell new stories in the Destiny universe, and create entirely new worlds and to be announced IP. So I'm curious, this is a lot to throw at you. So Destiny 2 continues. It sounds like there'll be another Destiny of some sort, maybe a spin-off, something not central, and then a new IP. What do you think, Chris?
I love it. Love it. That makes me really happy. That's a crazy huge expansion too. Like that's a wild like amount of. I think the opening of a publishing
Chinese money.
Yeah. But the opening of a publishing office is pretty interesting to me, because I wonder if they're really gonna, like, if they're gonna get into the publishing game at all. That would be really, really interesting to see.
They should. It's a great way to create revenue.
They absolutely should. Yeah, that would be so wild, seeing a non-Bungie game with a Bungie logo on it. That'd be wild. But no, I think Destiny is like I've been getting into it a lot more recently, and I'll talk about it a little bit in the games that we're playing. But like, Destiny is like a really good universe. It's like really rife for like stories, and like different genres could really. I could see a Destiny Tactics. I could see a Destiny RPG. I could see any number of things that could work really, really well in that universe. And they've built it up for so long, and it's so deeply entrenched with like genuinely interesting lore. It kind of reminds me of what Riot's doing with is it League? Wait, oh my God, is it?
Yeah, League of Legends.
League of Legends, yeah, where they're doing all these different.
They're doing an RPG and apparently doing a fighting game and stuff like that. Yeah,
like I don't know anything about League of Legends, so I can't speak to whether or not that fits, but I can definitely say like, yeah, Destiny is a big deal, and it's cool, and I'm looking forward to more non-Bungie or non-Destiny Bungie stuff too. Like I'm kind of itching for that as well. So yeah, I'm hard pressed to be sad about this, you know, even if it is Chinese money from like, you know, God knows where.
It definitely is, but that's why you invest in. So we'll see what happens. I'm intrigued by them creating a publishing arm too, just to see if they can create some latent revenue. We even see small studios like Yacht Club doing this with Cyber Shadow, and it's just a good way. I mean, we're even investigating. I mean, I can tell you right now, we are porting a game. Lily is right now. So we're going to get publishing revenue and perpetuity from that. And it's not going to be very much, I don't think, but it's something. So it would be cool for them to get involved in that. Dustin, share with me your insights on this.
Yeah. So I guess I have a few thoughts. I mean, first of all, it feels like publishing in Bungie makes sense in that they're a very competent studio that is continually growing. Obviously, this is a big part of it. I guess something I wanted to throw to you, Chris, just something I was thinking about, is that I feel like I don't have a pulse on what the Destiny community right now feels, because it seems, I mean, this is literally the story of Destiny its entire life, is that it's a fucking roller coaster. And
Yeah.
and the funny thing is, it's like half the people are happy, the other half are upset. And so do you think there's a possibility that there's like a negative feeling where it's like, oh, you guys are expanding and you can't get the current game that you have out right? Or is this overall just positive?
I'm sure there's like some Destiny is a huge roller coaster, and I think usually like half the community is happy, half the community is pissed, right. And then like usually it alternates, and like one side is, you know, they usually like swap emotions, and it's been like that for the entirety of Destiny's life cycle, I think. But you know, the fact of the matter is that people still play it, and you know, like people like this is a game that I complain about endlessly, but I still come back to it. It's like I've made a joke. It's like I've put, you know, 200 and something hours into Destiny 2. I play it all the time. Don't buy it. Like, right. You know, it's one of those where it's like, it can be a chore sometimes, but it can also be like wildly rewarding. And I think that's really kind of the thing that that game banks on, because it is like a live service game, and I think I don't know if it's out of pocket to say, but I'm pretty sure it's the most successful live service like model that exists in like the console space anyway. Because you think of like Anthem, you think of like, I'm not talking about like MMOs, like actual like, you know, like World of Warcraft and EVE Online and stuff like that. There's obviously like successes before that are way more grandiose, but in the space of like loot driven, like MMO light, like the Anthems, the you know, the Divisions, your Avengers, it is kind of the target that a lot of those titles aim to at least hit the low bar of. And
right.
They mostly fail. And I think that speaks to, it can't be that every developer sucks, you know? Like, that can't be the case. It must be that there's something special about it that keeps it going. And, you know, it's got a rich universe. I would be totally, like, if they made, like, a Castlevania, like, fucking animated series in that universe, I'd be all over it. I'd be like, yes,
that'd be awesome.
Dude, give me that.
Yeah. But Destiny, it's so weird. It's like, you know, the bad relationship that you keep coming back to. Like when Destiny 2 came out, I was like, fuck this game. I'm not playing it. I put so much time into Destiny 1 and they never did anything that I thought was the right decision or whatever. I shit you not, I bought that game within a week afterwards, where I like, seriously, on launch day, I was like mad. And then like within a week, I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
Bought it.
It's that kind of game.
Yeah.
Well, I am interested to see how this develops. I'm glad you brought up Riot because, Chris, because it is pretty similar. I think that the situation between Riot and Bungie, though, is that Riot realized way too late, in my opinion, what they needed to do to kind of sustain League of Legends. I'm not saying League of Legends isn't popular, but League of Legends is, 13 years old or 12 years old now, and they're just now basically getting a League of Legends spinoff in the form of Ruined King, which comes to PS4 this year. But then I said that the Project L is a fighting game. Project F is an action RPG, apparently.
Yeah.
And then they're doing an MMO in that space as well. But it almost feels a little late. Although Riot also getting a big infusion from the very same company that's infusing money into Bungie. So it is interesting to see. I am excited about this. I want to see what else they can do outside of Destiny as an internal studio. It seems like it's going to be a long ways away. And unfortunately, although their talent has been so wrapped up in first-person shooters and multiplayer shooters for so long, it would be fun for them to see them do something else. But there's no way that they can do that, and there's certainly no way they can sustain the head count that they're aiming towards and the space that they're proposing and make, you know, single player games every 5 years. So
yeah, I mean, yeah, we'll see. I would love to see them do like just pull a total like Naughty Dog and be like, here's a third-person action adventure game. And it's a Bungie game, and it's like, what? They haven't done one of those since Bungie West made Oni in like 2001, I think. So, yeah, this is cool.
The other piece of interesting news. This is more of a rumor. This comes, multiple websites are talking about this, but I'll just go to the Push Square website since we like them and their story. Their story is called Job Listings Renew Speculation Regarding Virtual Reality Horizon Spinoff. And usually I'd ignore this, but it's actually pretty interesting. Here's what the story says in part. It says Fire Sprite, the studio behind PlayStation VR's surprisingly enjoyable survival horror roguelite The Persistence, is recruiting a string of new staff for a, quote, VR action adventure project adapted from one of the most original and successful multi-million selling console IP in the last 10 years, end quote. Previous job listings have referred to a, quote, multi-million selling action RPG, end quote, and specifically referenced PSVR. The advertisement for the lead producer position elaborates, quote, this is an exceptionally exciting project partnering with the IP holder to create a whole new chapter in the exciting and highly original universe they have established, utilizing the full immersive capabilities in VR to build a new narrative for fans and newcomers alike. And then it says, while there are no further details in the description, the wording is fascinating because it was rumored over a year ago that Sony was exploring the possibility of a Horizon spinoff built with virtual reality. At that time, Blood and Truth developer London Studio was believed to be leading that project, but people don't think that's true anymore. So anyway, there's all these different leads if you guys want to go and click around to Upload VR and some other websites. We don't know the veracity of the claim, but Dustin, I'm wondering if that sounds good to you. It sounds almost impossible to believe, but that IP actually makes a lot of sense in VR to me. So I'm curious what you might want to see something, or would you want to see something from Horizon? What might it be?
Yeah, I think this is something that Sony should have done literally years ago. Like, I'm looking through the list of games they published on PlayStation VR, and there's a lot, but the ones that they adapted from their actual normal PlayStation titles are, they did Drive Club VR, they did two Until Dawn spinoffs, and then everything else was sort of original IP, but in that vein. But anyway, the point is they didn't take any of their core, big titles and make VR spinoffs. And I just don't understand why. To me, that just seems like an obvious way to sell the hardware. Get a brand that someone's familiar with and make a really good VR spinoff or something. And, there's always the argument about like keeping VR games VR and regular games regular. But we've seen that time and time again that doesn't have to be the case. So I think it's a fantastic idea to sum everything up. And I'm just surprised it's taken them this long.
What about you, Chris? Does this I guess I'm just kind of intrigued by Horizon being leveraged in this way because it's such a huge IP. They're obviously doing a pretty big comic run. The sequel's coming out. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some animated stuff in the works. We kind of saw some things from that, I think, like some different workups and mock-ups, and then maybe a VR game. So maybe they're going to try to make this their next big thing, which I think is kind of smart because it's so good, in my opinion. Would you want to see something like that?
Yeah, I don't see why they shouldn't. I think, honestly, the best... that's kind of the weird thing about VR, right? It's like, it's inherently a very niche market, so you're kind of going to want to attach, like, really kind of well-known IP to anything that goes on in that space because it's more likely to get in front of people's eyes. It's more likely that people are going to be interested in it. I think that's why Half-Life Alyx exploded, because personally, like, I've played VR games that are very Half-Life inspired that are kind of as far as like physics gameplay goes, like a little bit better than Half-Life Alyx, but Half-Life has the Half-Life name, and of course it's going to explode. So I think it's wise of Sony to take something like Horizon, which is, I think, arguably their freshest success, and really turn it into something that could drive people to this really underutilized medium and platform. I think it's smart.
Yeah, I do too. So we'll monitor it. Hopefully we have some news. Things are a little quiet on the PSVR front. I don't know if that's the other exciting thing that we should note about that is this could be a PSVR 2 game, because the story does note that they originally talked about PSVR in their job listings, which was removed. I don't know if that's because it's a multi-plat VR game, but it seems more likely that they didn't want to have more people on their trail by calling out Sony's platform in particular. So we'll keep an eye out. If that game's going to come out, sounds like it's going to be after Horizon 2, since it looks like they're still hiring for it. So
yeah,
nothing to be too excited about imminently. Here's another one. This is an interesting one that popped up. I was originally going to make a story out of this, and then I was like, we'll just talk about it here. There's a random animated short for Ratchet and Clank called Life of Pi, P-I-E, on Crave, Crave is a website, like a Canadian streaming website, I think. Used to do like some coverage and stuff too. But if you just go to crave.ca, you can look for it. Ratchet and Clank Life of Pi. And the description is, while on an intergalactic pizza run, I don't know why intergalactic is, there's a hyphen in it. Ratchet and Clank discovered that the diabolical Dr. Nefarious has developed an interdimensional portal device that would allow him to rule over the multiverse, etc. Now, this thing just popped up, and then IGN actually went to Sony and asked them, like, what the hell is this? And here's what Sony said about it. Quote, Ratchet and Clank Life of Pi is a standalone, licensed animated special created and distributed by Mainframe Studios. The show is not related to the upcoming Ratchet and Clank game for PlayStation 5 and is not official canon to the franchise's video game narrative.
Glad they cleared that up.
Yeah, so, well, I just think these guys were apparently the ones that did the movie that just kind of came and went too. And my assumption is that this was supposed to be something that was going to appear somewhere and no one gives a fuck, or no one gave a fuck about the movie. So they were like, well, and they might have had some sort of agreement to at least get it out so people can see it. So it's there if you want to watch it, if you have the inclination.
Yeah,
but it has nothing to do with
if you're subscribed to Crave, as so many of you are.
Right, exactly. So just thought that, I mean, if you're really hankering for Ratchet and can't wait until June, there it is for you. Dangling. And here's one more small piece of news before we get into more what we're playing, and one more inquiry from the audience as well. We talked a little bit about this last week, but this was inevitable. Rainbow Six Quarantine, which is the upcoming Rainbow Six game from UB, they talked about it in their recent conference calls and in their financials. It seems like the game is going to be renamed. Now, this isn't a huge surprise because no one wants to hear the word quarantine ever again. The rumor is that it's Rainbow Six Parasite. This comes from MP First, which is a website, I think, of pretty renowned. I mean, I don't know how reliable they always are, but I've seen them pop up and leak things. And what's interesting is one of the leaks is the PlayStation Vita remote play screen for the PS4 version of the game. And so UB reached out to these guys and said, while we recently shared that we will be changing the name of Rainbow Six Quarantine, Parasite is only a placeholder that our internal teams use. Recently, we ran an internal test for the game and some of its details became public. We can confirm this is a glimpse of the upcoming game and we will share more details, including the official name, soon. I actually like the name Parasite. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I don't mind it. I think it's fine. It's not surprising that they renamed it. I think you're totally right. It's like, man, maybe not mention a quarantine for at least the next 7 years. I think ideally that's enough time. Yeah,
it's like no. What do you think, Dustin? You like the name?
Yeah, I like that name. I don't know if I have really thing other than that. Then I'm guessing they were like quickly change even the internal name away from quarantine as soon as possible. I'm guessing that was months ago, but.
Sure. I love the PS4 internal test using the Vita. Still.
That's right.
Pretty cool. They must have some information over there that people are using Vita to remote play. I have no idea why else that would have appeared in there.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting little tidbit there if you want to read into it too much. All right. One more to get into. Duke Crone wrote into us. Now he says, "What's up, CNC with a possible side of D? All the serial killer psychopathic eating habit questions have struck a chord with me. What's your opinion on idiots that eat with their mouth open? I've been married nearly 11 years to a woman I love everything about, besides the fact that she refuses to shut her mouth while chewing on food. She claims it's because her nostrils are too small to breathe through her nose while chewing. But I find that to be a ridiculous excuse. The sound makes me sick, and what's worse is my 2 children have adopted the habit as well. If it doesn't stop, I'm going to end up in a padded room. Anyway, love what you guys do." So this is a major pet peeve of mine, but here's why I like this letter. Because he says he loves everything about this woman, except for this. But he says, "What's your opinion on idiots that eat with their mouths open?" So he's calling his wife and his kids idiots in this. This is a major pet peeve of mine. If you're eating with your mouth open, there's something wrong with you. Chris, give me your information here, your opinion on this one.
Yeah, no, it's not good. Don't do that. It's like, I'll accept maybe like an occasional chew. Sure. That requires your mouth to open once, like I'll give you like a 95% shut, 5% open in any given meal, like that I think is fine, because sometimes it feels weird. Like, I don't know about you, but like sometimes I'll think about this while I'm eating and I'll notice that I'm trying to keep my mouth shut. I'm like, why? I'm by myself, like whatever. But
it's good to reinforce those habits, though. Those good habits.
No, it is. But I think it's my grandmother would just hit me with a spoon every time I would chew with my mouth open. But I can't accept this as like an acceptable thing. Like if you're eating your food with your mouth open, like, and it's the majority of the time that you're chewing, like that's 10% of the time is too much. I
agree. Dustin, what do you think?
So I'm going to focus in. Duke here mentioned specifically it's the sound. And there's actually a term for this, and it's called, I had to look it up, but I knew there was a term.
Misophonia?
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I definitely have this. And it's the reason I'm on this podcast right now. It's because I have become so good at editing any mouth noises. Everyone does it during a podcast. It's just unavoidable when you got your fucking mouth up in a microphone. You're going to have
your
mouth
jowls
noises.
All going, yeah.
Right. And so, you hired me. My editing skills were of quality. And part of that is because I can really focus in on those mouth noises. And I just love cutting them out. Now, that's no longer my job because we have, our lovely editor, Ben Smith, who does also a fantastic job now. But it's just ironic, the chain of events, hating mouth noises to now, on Sacred Symbols. I don't know.
Being forced to listen to them.
The butterfly effect is real. So
indeed. Oh, I hate it so much. It's funny because I would have never gotten anywhere near a second date with a person like this. It's just what I noticed that immediately about a person. I can think of the people in my past I've never dated anyone that did it because again, I would punch them in their fucking throat if they did that around me. But, the people in my past that I knew ate loud, I remember them. Like, I remember who they are. It's like, I said that I sat next to a person at IGN for a few years where I wanted nothing to do with her at lunch because it's gross, and my mom's boyfriend in the 90s when she divorced my dad and the guy she dated for a few years, he was a loud eater. And I remember that so well too. And he would eat bologna sandwiches on white bread and it would just,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Very vivid soundscape. Yeah. Just a cacophony of just wet slaps and disgusting teeth chatters. I hate that.
So here's what I want to say to Duke is your wife might be a lost cause and I don't care. I'm worried about these children. You need to course correct with these kids. You can't send them into the world being judged for eating what you just don't do it. Mm-hmm. Everyone makes a noise when you get a chip in the mouth but you can't go too crazy with it. Yeah. It's not allowed.
Yeah, just you take a cue from generations past. Like I said, my grandmother had this big spoon that she would use to cave in my vertebrae every time I would chew with my mouth open. I'm not saying you have to do that necessarily, but sometimes I don't do it anymore. Is all I'm saying.
You're not saying you don't not have to do that.
I'm just saying I don't do it, and that's what happens. So
right.
You could piece
two and two together. You're expecting to get beat. Sacred Symbols is brought to you by BetterHelp. 2020 is behind us. We're fully engaged with 2021, and it's time for a change, isn't it? The last year or so has been grating on all of us. We've all been dealing with a lot. That includes you. So isn't it time to better your mental health, your stress level, and your overall outlook? I think it is, which is where BetterHelp comes into play. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. With BetterHelp, you can equip yourself with the proper tools to help you with what you're dealing with. A lack of motivation, depression or anxiety, temper, stress, various insecurities, and more. And engaging with these tools can help make your life much better. It's really that simple. As someone who is a bona fide diagnosed depressed and anxious person, and as someone who wears that on my sleeve so that I might help others and bring awareness to our struggles, I think it's really important that people seek out professionals that can assist them in living their best life. And hey, BetterHelp's website is easy to use and to get started with. I navigated around it seamlessly. You're only a few clicks away from professional, affordable, convenient, and effective mental health care through a therapist that can help you. So give it a go. Some 1.5 million people already have. If you want to get 10% off your first month of therapy so that you can start living your best life, head to betterhelp.com/symbols. That's BetterHelp.com/SYMBOLS and start your journey. Again, for customized online therapy that can help with what ails you, head to BetterHelp.com/symbols. That's BetterHelp.com/symbols. All right, let's talk about the games we're playing this week. Dustin, you're the guest, so let's throw it over to you.
Sure. Well, I finished Dark Souls Remastered on stream a couple weeks ago. And that was fine. It's cool to go back and see where Dark Souls really got going. Obviously, there's Demon Souls as well, but I'm now playing Dark Souls 2. Not so good. This game is kind of notorious amongst the Souls community because it was not directed by their main director, Miyazaki. And you can tell in a lot of different ways. The world design is just totally different, and like they didn't really get the point of the Dark Souls difficulty. It really hones in on like, let's put 6 of the same enemy and be really annoying over and over, right? So I want to finish it though, even though I'm not enjoying playing it. Really, it's one of those things where I really think that From Software is like one of the best, the very best, and this is the final game of the Souls, Sekiro, whatever franchise that I need to beat. I just got to do it. I got to hunker down and beat it. So
sure,
that's where I'm at with that.
Good. Hey, wait, actually, before you proceed, I wanted to pick your brain about something real quick about this, because Ben Williams wrote in.
Oh, yeah.
We should revisit this. He says, "Hey, Fat, I want to push back on your comments about the Soulsborne community. I've recently gotten back into Bloodborne and I'm one trophy away from the Platinum. The community has been incredibly nice, helpful, and encouraging on Reddit, Twitter, Discord, etc. Everyone is so happy I'm enjoying it. They love explaining the lore and help me when I'm stuck. Just want to share my positive experience. Love your beautiful faces." So this is, of course, an answer to the fact that I said I often find this group of players to be amongst the most insufferable of players. And I'm curious, Ben is shining a positive light here. What has been your experience? Because I know that you had to set some backseat drivers coming into your Twitch stream and whatnot, right?
Oh, yeah. So my main experience with the Souls community is on Twitch right now. And it's so frustrating because you either there's like a tag you can put that says no backseating. And then, so if you put that on, then it's like, I'll ask chat for help and they're like, well, we don't want to. I'm like, no, I'm literally asking for it now. But if you have it off, there's like flyby people that'd be like, why aren't you blocking? Why aren't you rolling? Why aren't you doing blah, 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 blah? It's like, stop. Enough. But, there's multiple facets of every community. I've had fantastic co-op experiences playing Bloodborne or Dark Souls 3 and stuff like that. And, it just, there's bad eggs everywhere. And I do think overall, Colin, though, you're right about there's a thing with Souls fans that I don't know, I shouldn't be too general. I'm a huge Souls fan, so I can say this, right? A lot of them just think that they're a little bit better than you for playing Souls and being good at it. And there's just no way around that.
I agree. And maybe you are, but I don't know that you need to wear that on your sleeve. So I just wanted to inquire about that, because I don't want to, I want to present both sides of the story here. But I didn't mean to interrupt you. You said you're playing something else.
Yeah, I don't want to. I just, it's what we're playing. I'm playing Super Mario 3D Land on Switch, and it's awesome. It's very good. And if you played it on Wii and didn't like it, try it again, because they increase the movement speed, and it makes a night and day difference.
Cool.
So,
yeah, I haven't played that game. It came in a red case, right, on Wii, as I recall? Isn't that New Super Mario? Or Super Mario?
You're thinking of New Super Mario Brothers Wii.
Yeah,
oh, okay.
That was that red case.
Yeah.
Super Mario 3D Land. Yeah, I don't think I played that then.
It's good.
I don't know. Chris, what have you been playing?
It's me, so it's the same. It's the same thing as always. I'm playing Destiny 2. I normally wouldn't have put this on the list. I would have just said, like, oh, I'm just doing Cyber Shadow again, which I still am playing Cyber Shadow. I'm just, like, really bad at it, so I've put it down and decided to take a bit of a break from it. But they, out of nowhere, this last couple days, put out this new, like, this random quest, this exotic quest where you could just, like, you finish it and you get this crazy gun. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll do this thing, and I want a shiny new gun to use. And so I did this quest, and it was like some of the most refreshing gameplay that I've experienced in an FPS in a while. Like, it reminded me, I wouldn't say it's like Hitman 3 second level tier where it's like, oh man, that's just like god tier like level design, but I play Destiny to like shoot aliens in the face and just chat with my friends and just like fly around and throw magic at zombies and space wizards and shit, you know. So when I started this quest lineup and it was just like investigate this ship, and then you walk up and it's like quiet and the door isn't opening and you're like, what the hell? And then there's nothing to guide you and you just have to find your way into this ship. And there's like a horror atmosphere that's like really strong. It like actually got like I made me jump a couple times. I'm like, oh my God, this is like atmospherically like really satisfying. And it just took me by total surprise. Like I wasn't expecting just this random free, what feels like just a little short story to just be thrown into the game like that. And, it's stuff like that really makes Destiny like easy to come back to constantly, because it's just like all these like random surprises that are just like, sometimes they're a little bit lackluster and sometimes they're a little bit cool and sometimes they're like this, where it's like, this is the best thing that they've done in years. Even with full priced expansions in that list of things to consider. It's just really cool, and I've been having a lot of fun with it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Destiny 2, I mentioned last week that I was playing the Division 2 a little bit, and I messed around with it a little bit more, and we got a question an inquiry from Adam Barnes. He wrote it in and said, "What's up, fellas? Colin, I'm a little confused about something. You said that you finished the Division 2. Well, you can check that I finished it. You can just look at my trophies. But since going back, you've seen that all locations have been taken back over, and you don't know what's happening. Don't you remember that at the end of the main story, the whole city is invaded by Black Tusk, and then that becomes a weekly occurrence? I play this game on PS5 and PC, and I solo run on Heroic. Yeah, big dick energy. Let's set aside some time for a session together, and I'll help you out. Let Daddy take care of you. All the best." No, because the difficulty is not the problem. I don't really find the Division very hard. It's actually, I love third-person shooters. I'm pretty competent at them. I don't know what's going on. No, I don't remember that. The game never really told me that when I turned it back on. And guys, I don't even know how to see my level in the game. Like, I actually went back. So here I bought the New York expansion. There's like a helicopter. I went to go to the helicopter to go to the expansion. I was like, I must be level capped because I don't see anything. Like, I don't even understand. Like, now I have a weapon, it tells you how strongly all of your gear combined is, your gear score, whatever. So I'm like, I must be like leveled up or whatever. So I went and it's like, you're not leveled up and we'll auto level you if you go. And I'm like, wait, I don't want to do that. So I backed out and I studied the screen for 10 minutes. Like I'm like, I don't know what I'm looking for. How I can't be the only one.
Yeah.
I'm not the smartest man in the world. I'm never going to make that claim, but I've been playing video games for a long time. I feel like I understand them pretty well. And I do not know how to see my own level in the game. I don't know what's going on in the game. And it's so frustrating because the beat to beat gameplay is so fun. Division 2 is so fun. And they just don't, I wish they would just like, I've even searched around. Like other people don't know how to see their level. Just like funny. And I'm like, and what's funny is that they actually released a random statement on Reddit. Massive did, because they're getting so much attention because of the Star Wars game that they're making. They went back and said like, oh no, we're actually making even more paid Division 2 content, which is great news. So I want to understand better what's happening. And it's frustrating to me.
Yeah.
So I wanted to throw that out there, but I just don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
So what I did was during the Japanese sale that's going on right now, if you guys noticed, Puyo Puyo Tetris 2 was on sale and I bought it. Now, I'm not a Puyo fan. Puyo Puyo is not I understand how it works. I've played it in the past. It's very old. I think it goes back to like the MSX. Mm-hmm. But, and Tetris, I consider myself a pretty advanced Tetris player. Puyo, I'm not very advanced at. But this game kind of combines the two and into this it's got like a cute little story mode, a lot of cute characters. This apparently is kind of similar to the original Puyo Puyo Tetris. But it's fun. I like it. It was exactly what I was kind of looking for. I paid $30 for it, which seems a little steep still, but I dig it. For people that don't know, Puyo Puyo is like this puzzle game on a 2D plane, very similar to Tetris. Think about like Mean Bean Machine or something like that, or Dr. Mario. You're dropping like different things down and you want the blocks to touch, so 4 of them touch at least, and then they disappear. But the idea in this game is to basically stack everything in such a way that when you start like a careening effect. And it's the only way to like get high scores. And there's even trophies for like do 6 combo. And I've only gotten to a 3 combo. And it's like do a 6 combo 100 times. I'm like, I don't even think I can do it once. But it's really fun. I really highly recommend it. It's cute. It's whimsical. I'm digging it. And then Turd Ferguson wrote in because he's inquiring about another game. He says, hey guys, the question is for Colin. I heard you mention in the last episode that there are no games to play until May, or that I want to play, but aren't you a big Ys fan? Ys 9 just came out, and I don't think you've talked much about it. Has your interest in the series waned in recent months? No, it's waned. Well, yeah. As people know, I played Ys 8 for a little while on Vita. I downloaded it last year. I didn't really like it that much. It's too story heavy. It's weird. It's got like this weird hub world, and so I was reading the Ys 9 reviews, and it's like, oh, it's more like a Ys 8. I'm like, well, I don't want to play that. I mean, I'm looking more for a hack and slash game that requires very little thought.
Yeah,
and that's not what Ys is anymore. So I'll play it eventually, but I think it's called what is it called, Mos Nostrum or some fucking weird shit. Anyway, something
like that.
It got really good scores. So I'm not saying it's a bad game, but it's just, if it's more like Ys 8, it's not the Ys I'm looking for. So I hope that, Mr. Ferguson, turd, it's good to hear from you. I hope that makes it clear for you. Now, boys.
Yeah.
It's time to get into the news.
Yes.
Now this first story, I didn't write up. Instead, I wanted to kind of navigate off of a few stories I put in our planning document, which I know you guys saw, but then some listener inquiries. It's all about 6 Days in Fallujah. Now, we talked about 6 Days in Fallujah last week. I don't want to get into it again. For people that missed it, 6 Days in Fallujah was originally a Konami published game, third-person tactical shooter that was canceled in 2009. And it's being revived as a first-person shooter by a new studio, and being published as a retelling of the events of the second Battle of Fallujah in 2004, which is very contentious. And I didn't anticipate that we were going to really even have to talk about this again, but this kind of blew up in the industry. And so Walter Boley wrote in, and he kind of encapsulates what the problem is, I think, with this game with some people. And I want to investigate it with you guys, if we mind. He says,
sure.
Howdy, sacred symbols, with the developers of 6 Days in Fallujah revealing their desire to make no political commentary about their true life events that inspired the game. Is your excitement for the game as deflated as mine? In the 18 hours I've known of this game's existence, I went from very intrigued to feeling absolutely nothing. In my opinion, the desire to make this particular game with its subject matter apolitical makes absolutely no sense and removes the very things that could have made this game stand out amongst its peers. If you have no desire to make political commentary, why make this game at all? What do you guys think? So before I go any further into this and throw it over to you guys, it's worth noting a couple of things. These guys did a few interviews, one with Polygon, which I think is a weird site to go to if you want to be treated fairly. And then 6 Days in Fallujah did also an interview with gamesindustry.biz, but on their own website, they put up an FAQ. So if you go to 6days.com, SIXdays.com, it says, why are you making this game? So it answers the question, Walter. It says, from their perspective, quote, we originally started this project because we wanted to share some extraordinary stories we had been told about remarkable people and events from this battle. As we listened to these stories, we also began to realize how different video game combat was from the real thing, and also how video games could communicate powerful truths about world-changing events in ways other media could not. You can read more about why we're making this game in our open letter to the community on our website, so there's a letter there as well. A few things they make clear here is we will not recreate the death of a specific service member during gameplay. You will always play as an American or someone from the coalition. You will not play as an insurgent in multiplayer or in single player, and the US government was not involved in the creation of the game. So there's a lot there, but this has become somewhat of a hot button topic. Dustin, I want to throw it to you first. What do you make of everything that's going on surrounding this game? It's pretty multifaceted, and I think kind of tells us a little bit about the games industry and the way it's covered, but also about the expectations of gamers themselves.
This is so complicated, right? I mean,
yes.
In one way, I feel like we know games are art on this show. And I would say most of the listeners of this show know that. You should know that. But the reality is that, do we want to say most people don't believe that? A lot of people still view games as Mario running from one side of the screen. And obviously we love games like that. But if we want games to be taken seriously as the art they are, we need to push the medium further. And I believe strongly that games like this that may make you feel uncomfortable are the games that do that, whether you like it or not, right? And so, looking at some of these interviews with the 6 Days developers, I mean, it's weird. I'm disappointed in the reaction to the game, but I'm also disappointed in the developers. It's like you can't have your cake and eat it too. is this just supposed to be entertainment or is it supposed to be a statement? Because it really can't. It has this is still a very politically charged situation, right? And there are people that are, we know people that fought in this war, and the wounds are still there, right? Whether they're, physical wounds or actual or mental wounds, this is still, a recent thing. So I feel like they either need to be like, yeah, this is what it is. This is we are making a political commentary and we do want to portray XYZ emotions around this event. We want to tell the story as it was or not, right? Either make it something special or make it Call of Duty. You can't have it both ways.
Yeah, it's a good place to start. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I'm of two minds about it too. I think the way that people are reacting to it is a little bit disappointing. I thought that maybe we had matured a little bit to the point where we'd be a little bit more okay with the fact that, I've never had an issue with this. Like, I've never had an issue. Like, I say make a game about something that happens like 3 days after it, I really don't. I don't believe in too soon, really. Like, I just don't think that's even a real concept to me. But at the same time, it's like... yeah, I don't know how you could really... I don't know how you could make a game about such a recent conflict and say that it isn't political. Like, even... I would even argue that, like, even some of the more schlocky, more mindless, like, games like Call of Duty, like, that's political, too. Like, it's not necessarily, like... telling you something, and it's not necessarily like trying to force a specific idea down your throat, or it's not necessarily elegantly or cogently political, but like you're making a video game about warfare. Like, that's inherently like there's got to be something. This reminds me of like when a couple years ago, and I'm sure people still do this, where people are like, I don't want politics in my games, where it's like, well, that's not true. What you're saying is you don't want to be preached to, or you don't want to be patronized, or you don't want to be like, you don't want to have a message shoved down your throat to the point where it feels like you're being condescended to. And I've played games like that where it's like, it's just beating you over the head with this message, and it's like, all right, I get it. I feel like people conflate that, and I feel like the developers are conflating that too. Maybe what they mean to say is, hey, we're not trying to talk down to the audience here. We're not trying to make a political game. We're not trying to make anybody feel unwelcome. But the game that we're making is about a modern conflict, and it will be political. I think that's the bridge that they just haven't crossed yet. Maybe they don't realize that that's a bridge they need to cross. But I've noticed that cognitive disconnect a lot online, where it's like, I don't like politics in my games, and then you guys like, what is your favorite game? It's like, oh, like Metal Gear Solid and like BioShock, and it's like, well, come on, dude. Like, it's just because it's fiction doesn't mean it's not political, Like, BioShock is one of my favorite. I think one of like my top 5 games ever, and that's a very, very, very political game. And even I would say, yeah, I don't want to play a game and feel like I'm being like. I don't want to play a game and feel like I'm reading an article on Jezebel, Yeah. That's what I don't want.
I don't think people even go to Jezebel and want to read articles on Jezebel.
But like, I don't know. I think people should be able to make whatever games they want. I think people should be able to express whatever political messages they want to in their game, and it'll be up to people and the audience as a whole as to whether or not that game succeeds when it comes out, and when people got to vote with their wallets. But trying to like kind of like step all over a game before it's even out, before it's even had a chance to make a case for itself, before it's even really showcased what it even is, I think that's unfair, and I think we should give all these games a fair shot, even if they will inevitably poke buttons and make people uncomfortable.
To me, because you guys had both said it, I mean, you both made a lot of good points here. To me, it's very complicated, because one thing I can't seem to escape in this conversation is this idea. And again, I don't want to misquote him, but he says that while they're giving, and it's this guy, Peter Tamte, who is working with Victoria, who's the publisher of the game. And they keep talking about how they're trying to not make a statement, like a political statement. And it is ham-handed in the way it's said, but I understand what he means, what he's saying, and I think he says it in one of the interviews here, is that like we don't want to, like, they want to give context and all of that, but they don't want to make a political statement, he says, with a quote, without in any way disparaging the service of those who are actually there to fight. And I think that that's an important part of this that's being missed, mostly because, and again, we're going to talk political here. It's a political topic, so, you know, tune out if you don't want that. I'm leaving my political conversations for when we can have long form conversations like this and nowhere else in my public life anyway. And I feel like what he's saying is we want to make a game about this. It was inspired by Marines and soldiers and coalition people that were there. And yeah, there's some fucked up things that apparently happened to Fallujah. Some we don't know, some we don't. There's certainly multiple sides of the story, but we don't want to tell a political story. And I'm talking from his perspective because we don't want to trivialize the guys who were there, making it seem as if they're war criminals, when in fact they were just going, you know, on behalf of the commander in chief and the people that sent them, the population that sent them. And I think it's hard to tell people that, because I think it's hard for people to understand. It's like, all right, so what you're basically saying is real people fought here and the outcome wasn't maybe ideal, and maybe there's some white phosphorus being used and some untoward things and certainly hundreds of civilian deaths and all of that. But that's not unique to Fallujah. And I don't feel like I understand in totality the end result of the argument, other than to remove a person's agency to say, see, because this is the thing I really can't escape, is they're saying like, well, saying there's no political statement is a political statement. And I'm like, I agree with that. Actually, in the main, I do think it's a political statement, but you can't remove a person's agency from saying like, listen, you can read whatever you want into this, but we're really not trying to say anything. And if you have a problem with that, then that's certainly fine, but you can't read X, Y, and Z into what we're saying when we're simply saying we're not trying to tell a commentary that undercuts the servicemen that fought there, because we can go on and on about everyone's opinions, but the reality is that this is a largely, I imagine, American conservative gaming audience is going to buy this game, and you make games for who you are aiming them at, pardon the pun, and I feel like that's only logical. So I'm just kind of lost in the mix here. And what's frustrating for me is that in my own attempts to have a productive conversation, not only has that not been reciprocated, but it just kind of devolves into the lowest common denominator. And Rob Wyburn wrote into us about this and said, "Hey, C Squared, this one is for Colin. I got to ask, why does the games media seem so toxic? I saw the tweet sent out by Rami. He's talking about Rami Ismail, who we'll talk about in a minute. And to be honest, it seemed really mean-spirited and misguided. I don't know you personally, but you seem like a reasonable guy. If he had nothing nice to say, he should have never said anything at all, blah, blah, blah." So I reached out to a guy named Rami Ismail on Twitter. I actually met him in the past, although I don't remember specifically when. It was a long time ago. Now, people might know Rami because he founded the studio Vlambeer, and they're known for Ridiculous Fishing and Luftrausers, and later on Nuclear Throne and some other games. And he's a Dutch, half white, half Egyptian, Dutch born in the Netherlands guy. And he had a complete nervous breakdown basically in public over this game. And I invited him on the show before he had most of that nervous breakdown. I'm kind of glad he declined me as rudely as he did, because I don't want that energy on the show. I thought he was a little more put together than he seemingly came off. But what's disappointing, to Rob's point, and I'll throw this back to Chris, is like I can't seem to find people that will have this conversation with me, because I'm not really even saying that the game's a good idea. I'm certainly interested in it just from a historical point of view and to see what they say and to see if the game's any good. But people can certainly make the argument that it's ill-conceived and whatever, but no one will make the argument. And it makes me feel, when I try to have these conversations, that people simply can't defend their arguments, and it just reinforces my own preconceived notions that I'm probably right. Mm-hmm, so yeah, I'm wondering what you mean. I mean, it's a lot, but
it's unfortunate that people are just like unwilling to have really basic, non-controversial conversations. Like I'd imagine, because, you know, when two people are coming from different places and approaching a similar discussion or approaching a similar topic, it kind of inherently nullifies any bit of controversy that could come from it, you know, because it's just two people kind of exploring ideas with each other, and it's kind of a shame that that is just not possible, because everybody just kind of defaults to, you know, Twitter clowning, which is why I think just Twitter's the worst. Like Twitter has set society back so fucking far, in my opinion. Like, actually, I'm not even joking. But, you know, I don't know, this is a complicated topic. What you said before about, like, you know, you can read whatever you want into this. It doesn't mean we're trying to say anything. I think that's interesting, because it's like, yeah, you can definitely, there are definitely games that aren't trying to say anything, but whether you meant to say something or not doesn't necessarily like mean you haven't said something. Like, you could make this game, right? And you could be completely apolitical, and it'll just be about like, hey, you know what? Soldiers following orders, and, you know, they're doing what they got to do. But that's an interesting conversation in and of itself. It's like, what does that mean to be like a serviceman, just kind of doing what you're told, and just sort of like following orders and following instructions, and not questioning like what it is you're doing, and eventually like landing yourself in a situation where the morality of a situation is very, very gray. I think that's a political conversation, and it's a statement that they would essentially be making without even intending to do it. So I think that's what's interesting about politics in media and in entertainment in general. It's like, even if we think things aren't necessarily like, and I'm not saying like Mario is political, you know what I mean, but there are definitely certain things that might come out just naturally, just based on how a story is structured, and just how a game presents itself, that while not intentional, are also provoking interesting kind of discussions and conversations. And I would love to hear a conversation all about this, but people aren't willing to talk about it.
I would too, especially because I would love to just go in blind. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't even know what I would say. I don't know what would come up. You know.
Yeah, I don't even know what they're really doing with this game. Like, they seem to be all over the place. Like, I'm super interested in it. I'm really curious to see how this game does. If it gets canceled again. you know, we don't know. We have no idea what'll happen. It doesn't. I hope it doesn't either. It would be a shame.
I put that on Twitter, that I feel like the people that are complaining are falling into a trap just because they can't really win.
Yeah.
At this point. And I do find it weird that they are going and doing these interviews with really woke outlets like Polygon. It's very strange. I don't know, there's got to be some sort of intent there. I don't know if it's actually. I've talked about in the past. I think Kingdom Come Deliverance with Warhorse Studios and others have done this with great effect. Is to just take advantage of Kotaku and Polygon by making them angry on purpose, and then you sell games. And I feel like that might be part of it. But I just see, here's the thing. And this is the thing about Rami, especially kind of coming in and having a fucking nervous breakdown. And I don't mean to disrespect him at all, but Rami's not Iraqi. And his dad's Egyptian. He's not an Iraqi. He's not from there. He's Dutch. He's as Dutch as I am American, you know? And if he wants to talk about his connection through his family, that's fine. But then, like, my grandparents had a connection to like the Italian fascists during World War II. And, you know, it's like at some point you have to kind of like draw the line, right? And what I realized was coming out of this, the reason I bring this up is because the most notable conversation, if you want to call it, that came out of this whole fiasco so far is like a woke off oppression Olympics thing between Rami and this woman named Jita Jackson at Kotaku over who's more offended by the events of the game, who has more grievance over the way their respective people, Arab or Muslim and Black respectively, are treated. And I'm like, why does it always go down this road? Why does it always like, how did Jita Jackson, who I think writes for Kotaku or something, how did she make this about her? What the fuck does this have to do with her being Black? You know, these are the kinds of things where I'm like, why are we getting so far away from the conversation? What I want to know, and I think what most people want to know, is like, what is the problem with telling this story? How can it be more effectively told? Is it a story that's worth being told? And I think most importantly, are your opinions on it consistent? Because if you're saying like, we can't tell the quote unquote, if you want to call it that, positives of Fallujah or the heroic stories of Fallujah without telling all the bad things. And it's like, well, that's like every military shooter. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, like, do you think that everything was clean during World War II? Do you think everything was clean? Like, what?
Yeah.
You can't, during the Cold War, do you think that they're telling real espionage stories in Call of Duty? I just don't understand. But with this particular game, this isn't the first game to say, like, just ripped out of the stories, ripped out of the headlines. We've played a lineage of World War II games that are just like that. And I don't feel like we're getting the same amount of pushback. And I do not understand how 11 years later, 12 years later, after this game was first canceled, that we are back to this to square one with the same people saying the same shit.
Yeah. I have a couple I do think, I don't know, I do think it's a little different than a Call of Duty and like a little different than a World War II, because these things are, again, like I don't necessarily believe in the concept of too soon already, but like I do think like World War II is so like it's one of those things where it's like Nazis are they're just like, they're like werewolves, you know? Like they're just like kind of like this cultural, like kind of almost fictional enemy, because they're so comically evil, like, and they're so far removed from our like modern, I'm talking about like obviously actual Nazis who were like fighting in in World War II. I'm not talking about like some psycho on Twitter who has like really weird takes. But you know, I do think this game's a little bit different only because it's kind of making this a problem for itself in a lot of ways, because it's kind of getting on a pedestal and being like, okay, guys, we're going to tell a real story. It's not like Call of Duty that's like based on you know what I mean? It's not like just sort of like based loosely on like real events. And we all know Call of Duty's like action schlock, and we all know it's like, you know, romanticized warfare, and it's just kind of the point of it. Nobody really thinks too much about Call of Duty, and it's more about like, what is Captain Price doing? You know, it's like, it's more about these like random fictional characters that they kind of like have invented and kind of thrown into this real or like pseudo realistic environment. But this one's like, you know, it's like based on real people, and like you know, it is super recent, and they're making a big deal about that themselves. So I think that in and of itself is kind of causing a lot of this, where it's like, if they had just been like, hey, we're making a game about the battle in Fallujah, and that's all they said, like, I don't know if you'd see the same amount of pushback, but I do think that there's just this weird puritanism. And it was the same thing on Fox back in 2008, where it's like, this can't be told now, this is not okay, and it's like, now it's just the same thing, but from the other perspective, it's the same shit. And I would hope that a game that is aiming for this goal of being like, you know, we're going to tell like a real story, like, I would hope that they would have the balls to be like, hey, you know what? Yeah, it's not clean, not particularly great. That would be awesome, because I love that shit. And I think that would make it more of an art piece than it otherwise would be. Because I think we have a lot of these romanticized war games, and this would really set it apart, and this would be like really ballsy. That would be a real ballsy thing to do. Be like, hey, you know what? Shit's bad everywhere here. Like, there ain't no good people here. And maybe there are good people, and like maybe it's like gray. But I don't know. I feel like they kind of set this shit up for themselves in a lot of ways, just by the way that they're promoting it, you know? That's not to put everything on them, but, you know, we all know the culture we're living in right now, you know? Like,
well, I think that they're trying to take advantage. I think they're trying to take advantage of it. I just don't know. I don't know. I don't know if they're doing what they're doing on purpose or not, and if it's kind of getting out of control. Because I understand the strategy. But Dustin, what do you have anything to add here?
I don't know. It's a bit of I'm looking back at Rob's question, and it's related and unrelated, but I feel like it's worth saying. And I wanted to go back to what he said about why does the games media seem so toxic? And the answer is because it is.
Yeah, it's really bad.
So
yeah, it
I
doesn't
guess
seem that way.
And what I wanted to say, I was thinking about this because I saw the tweets and the way he treated you, Colin, and I was mad when it happened, and I was like drafting a tweet. I was ready to go, just like everyone else was. And then like within a few hours, the situation really changed, and I really felt bad. Not just, you know, that this guy had this mental, you know, moment for the public to see, but the way that everyone else kind of reacted. And so, yeah, the industry is toxic, and like to the point where there's people that I knew and would consider myself friendly with that, like, once I started working this job, no longer want anything to do with me. Not many, but a few. And so what I want to say is just that, like, if the industry is toxic, then we need to be the change that we want to see, right? And so I saw people that were vehemently defending you, and I think that's good, and I think there's a way that can do that effectively, and some people that maybe weren't so effective. And I was almost in that camp, right? And so, you know, I don't know. I'm on the soapbox now, but my thing is just that, like, yeah, it's toxic, but we can do better. We got to change the temperature in the room, you know?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what this company is about, right? Like, we've talked about this before.
Sure, and that's why I try. Listen, just because I want to have people on my show and talk to people doesn't mean I'm going to, like, not have an opinion or a strong opinion. They can deal with that or not. But
yeah,
I kind of feel like with Rami, I mean, respectfully, I feel like I said it earlier. I feel like I dodged a bullet with this dude just because it's like, you're not. I don't know. I don't know, like, how any normal person could just go off like this about a video game that doesn't really affect you at all, and then it drags in this other woman and then they're arguing about who's got the most virtue points and who's the most downtrodden, and it's like, you know, I'm sorry, man. Like,
I didn't even see any of that. I only saw the thing with you,
and it's like, you know, to me, I'm like, it's so tiresome. Like, why is everyone so quick to play the victim? Let's just see things play out and not think the very worst of everybody. It's frustrating. So I'm totally willing to have this conversation. I just don't know that there are very many people that I'd want to have the conversation with, because I don't know that very many people can talk about games the way we talk about games. And I'm not going to just, like, drag some random person on here, or just any person. I want someone with a voice. I'm trying to expose the other side of the argument, if you want to even say that. And I don't really take the tack that it's a good idea, this game. I just think that, like, you're seeing people overtly saying, like, cancel this game. And I'm like, yeah, listen, you better. And this just comes from the heart, and people can take it or not. The far left around the world, not everybody, but a huge portion of the far left is becoming authoritarian and is becoming the very censors that we used to make fun of in the 80s that were the Christian right. And now it's a right-wing position to fight for freedom of expression. Makes no sense. And there are plenty of people out there writing about this and talking about this all the time, whether it's Glenn Greenwald or others, very well-respected left voices. And I just think it's something that we should think about, because the freedom of expression, the freedom of thought, the freedom of speech, and the freedom of association and all of those things, they're really important. And so for us to know what a good game a good Fallujah game might look like is maybe to get a game that's not so good first, and understand that it's really not going to end the world if the combat in Fallujah. And by the way, guys, just real quick, I'm sorry to keep going, but 99% of the people that are talking about this had no idea what happened in Fallujah in 2004. Yeah. And listen, I've said over and over again, I'm not proud of I was a very vociferous supporter of the Iraq war when it happened. Very much so. And I'm completely ashamed of that. But it happened. That's what really happened. I mean, me and 85% of America were all about it. And we can only learn from our mistakes and look backwards. And part of that is a real accounting of the things that happened in Fallujah, in other places, and the crimes and all of that. But they're not trying to tell that story any more than any story ever told in a global warfare setting is going to try to tell and try to account for everything that happened leading up to it and there and all that. It's just crazy. I mean, it's totally nuts. And that's the biggest thing. As someone who studied history, I can say that unequivocally. It's insane to expect that, like, we're going to do a game about Fallujah, or we're going to write a book about Fallujah, and it's going to cover everything about Fallujah. Never happened. Never will happen. Never going to happen. There's no book like that about anything in history. So why would there be a game like that? And I want to ask these questions to someone who has an answer. And the thing is that I just don't feel like the people that are arguing these points have very much depth. Not generally. I don't know them like that. To the argument at hand, I don't think they think about these things very, very carefully, because you can knock this house of cards down so easily. So it just becomes about grievance. And that's my opinion, but that's kind of where I stand on it. you know?
It's funny though, because it's weird, because I don't even think it's the far left. I think it's like these milquetoast like people who are just like sitting in their like really cushy jobs, who are like just like you know, I'll let me just complain about something, because like I follow a lot of like super left wing people, and like they're all clowning on these people too. It really is this out of touch contingent of people who are just like complaining about shit that like the far left people that I follow on Twitter are just like talking about like, hey, where's our stimulus check in the middle of a pandemic? You know, like that's the shit that they're talking about. They're not talking about 6 days in Fallujah. Who the hell would even the fact that someone is comfortable enough in the current climate to even complain about something so trivial in the first place is wild. But yeah, I don't know.
But then it becomes about, you know, it's strange because it just becomes about them, right?
Yeah. It's very self-centered.
I fought in Fallujah and I have an opinion. And then it's like, you know, I'm a half Egyptian, half white man born in the Netherlands, and for some reason that gives me a special connection to what happened in Fallujah. And then it's like, oh, I'm a black woman, and it's like, who gives a shit about any of these indicators? Like, why can't we just have a conversation about like things that happened without bringing in all of this nonsense and this baggage that seeks to divide us and make us hate each other, and contentiousness and all of that? Dustin, you're exactly right. It's got to, at some point, it's got to start with us, and I do think we're doing that here. You want to know what the sad thing is, guys, about this Rami thing? Is that the reason I asked him publicly is because I was afraid to ask him privately, because I'm afraid to reach out to any of these people privately, because then who knows? I mean, they make shit up about me in public.
Yeah.
You know, so
it's better
so then
to do
I
it
email. So then I'm going to email them and be like, Colin Moriarty is harassing me, or so, you know. And it's like, so I just do everything I do in public now, so everyone can see, and there can be a full accounting of it that way.
Yeah. But these are the
I'm
same
sorry to
people.
interrupt. What were you saying, Chris? I'm interrupting.
No, I was just saying these are the same people they've always been. It's like, I'm sure you know, like the Overton window. You know how things like shift, and it's like,
right.
You know, it's like the people on Fox, the people on Fox News in like 2008, you know, are the people on like CNN now. You know, it's like there's very little difference between those people, I would argue, and it's like, you know, it's annoying and like embarrassing that the discourse is this juvenile and simplistic and social media centered, because like I feel like a lot of this, like without Twitter, I feel like everything would be better.
Definitely. I've just realized that in my own life. I mean, I've realized that for many years, but the less I read it, the more busy I become in my life, the less I read Twitter. And mostly, I mean, I read it every day, and then I realize like, wow, none of this is happening in the real world, you know, but nonetheless, our job is online. And I just feel like, why does everyone have to reduce themselves in every argument to the color of your skin, where you come from, your gender? I mean, like, these things aren't germane to everything in the world. I think we all have a lot of connective tissue between us just by our humanity. And I feel like I actually did a podcast appearance that will go up soon in the Netherlands, actually, ironically. And I was saying that, like, I feel like a lot of what goes on social media is narcissism run amok, and we all fall for it. But it's a matter, like, do you have any idea how many times I've wanted to say something about politics over the last 2.5 months since I stopped saying anything? Do you have any idea? And how much like self-control and restraint that takes, and how much healthier of a person that makes you, to not think that like me, like, you don't need to know what I think. It's like what does Ja Rule think of 9/11 thing. It's like, you don't, and to like kind of be able to back that out and have human discussions in long form ways like this, avoid the toxicity where we can, which is most of the time, I think, and then try to invite people into the fold so they can actually have a constructive conversation like this. But we just don't have any takers. So continue to recommend people, because I'd love to have this conversation, but
yeah, I'm
not gonna pursue this much further than this. And when the game comes out, it comes out. I mean, what we're dealing with here is a very A-style first person shooter. It's probably not going to be very good, and it's going to sell way more. And that's why I think these guys are not stupid. They're working Polygon, they're working Kotaku, they're working games industry up is.
I would hope so, because it doesn't seem, that's the thing. It's like, it doesn't seem like they are. That's the thing. Like, maybe they're really good at it, but it seems like genuinely like ignorance. Like, oh, I had no idea Polygon was going to do this. And maybe they're just that brilliant, but
I want to reach out to them to talk to them too at some point, but
you
I
should.
don't. Yeah, but
I bet they would respond.
I bet you they would, but I want the other side first. I need to even know what the argument is. Like that's the big thing I'm losing in the like, my skin color, virtue, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, what is the actual argument that we're making? And if the argument is that we need to treat these things with more care and honesty, then I simply decline the argument. It's not a good argument. It's a ridiculous argument actually. And it's an impossible standard. It's never been held up. Any other game has never been held. It's just more for people to complain about. And I got to be honest with you, because I know that there's so much contention about the Iraq war, and rightfully so, but I just didn't think that this would inspire so much furor. And we're still there, but many years after the surge. I mean, it's been 15 years since we really had like crazy combat.
It's still wild that we're still there though. But I mean, we could keep this going forever. But
yeah, all right, yeah, it's time to move on. This is becoming the new forever war.
Yeah, it's fucking.
All right,
sad.
let's move on. Dustin, do you have any closing comments, or can we?
No, I think everything well said.
All right,
for sure.
Sacred Symbols is brought to you by Honey. So here's the thing. We all shop online, right? And there's always that dangling promo code slot at checkout that you sometimes have something to put in, but usually leave blank. Oh, the possibilities of savings, they've slipped through your fingers yet again. But wait, that's where Honey comes in. That's because Honey is a browser extension, and its entire purpose is to spider the internet seeking promo codes and other sales opportunities that can help lighten the financial load of your cart. For instance, I installed the extension and in literally under a minute found a pair of premium earbuds I've been eyeing for a while. Honey was kind enough to let me know that the price had dropped some 30% in recent days at a certain retailer, and that now was the time to strike. We're talking about $18 in savings for installing a free browser extension. In the words of Chris, it's wild. And since Honey currently supports more than 30,000 online retailers, chances are you're going to find the savings you're looking for. As an avid online shopper, perhaps even more than most, I'm always looking for deals, Googling for coupons, and hoping I just didn't leave 10 or 20% savings in the ether. Honey allows people like me and you to circumvent that nonsense and shop cheaply with certainty. It lets you know when the deals are there to be had, and it's a truly valuable service, one that I think will provide welcome accompaniment on your online shopping expeditions. Imagine saving 10% on a total order here, or $15 on a pair of headphones there. It's all happening literally every day on Honey, so give it a try for yourself. 17 million people have, and they've garnered a shocking $2 billion in savings so far. So go install Honey and see what it's all about. Head to joinhoney.com/sacred. That's joinhoney.com/sacred. And download the extension. It takes seconds, seriously. Again, start saving money during online shopping by heading to joinhoney.com/sacred. That's joinhoney.com/sacred. Number 2. Last week, we alerted you to the fact that a law firm was actively seeking the possibility of filing a class action lawsuit against Sony for the DualSense controller. And this week, we can confirm that the law firm has filed suit. Chimically, Schwartz, Kreiner, and Donaldson Smith filed the suit in the Southern District of New York, according to GamesIndustry.biz, noting that DualSense is quote-unquote defective due to controller drift and other persistent issues some consumers are experiencing. The most interesting piece of the suit is the declaration that Sony knew about the issues before the launch of PS5 and its controller. The complaint is 33 pages long, and you can read it for yourself on the firm's website, chimicles.com. That's CHIMCLES.com. You can go look it up and read it. I did. It seems like they're doing some sort of class action suit, but you might be able to... It seems like they might sue Sony, get the... As sometimes happens, get the settlement, and then people can sign on to get the settlement in a certain amount of time. Are either of you experiencing persistent issues still?
Not enough that I'm, not enough that I'm going to go ahead and like randomly pile on Sony and try to nickel and dime them. My DualSense, like, it's weird. I only had a problem with it in Hitman 3 for some reason. Like, I don't know what the hell. Like, my camera would just look up every now and again, but I haven't had that experience in Destiny or like anything else. It's very bizarre. So nah, I don't think it's for me anyway.
Yeah, I haven't had any issues either. Dustin, are you going to sign on in the class action?
Well, I haven't had this issue. I'm just totally baffled, as one might say, that this is happening to Sony, and yet Nintendo has like totally skirted their drift issue for years. Though
yeah.
Honestly, I don't know a lot about that situation. I've personally never had any Joy-Con drift related issues, but
my nephews, it like haunts them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh. So, yeah, I don't know. So wait, what was the part where they said that Sony, their argument is that Sony knew that it was defective and sold it anyway.
Yeah, part of the argument is that Sony knew before they sold it that it was defective. I don't know how they know that.
No, right.
But it's
That
declared
seems
in the lawsuit, so this will be heard soon and thrown out or not. So I think we'll have more information in the coming days and weeks. But my assumption is that them saying, my theory is that someone from Sony might have given them something indicating that. That's a pretty strong statement to just make. So I imagine it's backed up by something, but we'll see. So again, go to chimicles.com if you guys want to investigate that.
Name.
If you want to nickel and dime Sony, unlike Chris. Number 3, if you're waiting for news about the PlayStation 5 centric patch of the Square Enix published and Crystal Dynamics developed Avengers, we have good news. The game's PS5 update will launch on March 18th. The bigger news, however, is that an all-new playable character is joining the Avengers that same day, no matter where you play. The bow-wielding Hawkeye. As the post on the official PlayStation blog notes, Hawkeye was introduced in 1954 and got his own series in 1983, and has had varying periods of relevance in hardcore comic circles. However, his inclusion in the game may infuse some new life into a persistent title that seems to be dying on the vine. After a protracted period of development, Avengers came to PS4 in September of 2020, where it initially saw strong sales, but waning player interest. Publisher Square Enix has lost somewhere in the ballpark of $70 million on the project. Chris, I saw your tweet about this, very sardonic tweet. This doesn't do anything for you, I assume.
What did I even tweet? I just said
you said something like okay or something, like quote tweeted it.
Yeah, I don't know, man. The way that they treated this announcement was like really kind of like oddly grand for what it was. It's like even their design of Hawkeye looks like really generic. It just looks like Cole from like Infamous, but like dressed like Hawkeye. It's like very weird. It's like a very...
Yeah, I remember Hawkeye being a little cooler than this. Like, isn't he in like wasn't he in like one of those arcade brawlers from the late 80s or early 90s, like X-Men or something?
Oh, like maybe like Marvel vs. Capcom or something.
So, I remember playing him. Like I remember no one else wanted to play as him. It was like one of those 4-player games. I don't know what it was, but
yeah, I don't know. Like he exists, and like he's in the Avengers movies, and like, you know, people like him just fine. But this isn't gonna help. This isn't gonna help the Avengers. Like what?
Are there any other characters that are missing? Isn't Spider-Man's not in it, right?
Spider-Man's not in it.
So
which
that's
is,
one.
You know,
that they have to
a particularly huge hole in that character roster. But like I don't know. Like I don't think there is a character that could fix this, though. In fairness, like I don't know if they brought in like, here's Doctor Doom, or like here's all the Fantastic Four, or here's even Spider-Man. Like I feel like if they brought Spider-Man in, who's like probably the crown jewel of superheroes at this point, I don't think it would be enough to save this thing. Like they lost $70 million on an Avengers game. Like I don't know if it's Anthem bad. You know, I don't know if it's Anthem unsalvageable, but it's definitely one of those things where it's like, listen, Hawkeye is not going to help you. Hawkeye he's a guy with a bow. He's not going to help you.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a little bit of a weird one for me. I would thought Spider-Man would be a bigger one for them to kind of go after. You have to assume maybe that'll be a PlayStation exclusive, or that was the plan at some point, which would be it. But you're right. We're going to talk about NPD sales later, and Spider-Man's still huge. Miles Morales is huge, so it's definitely not for lack of interest in the sphere. No, yeah. It's just the game.
Yeah, Spider-Man is transcends media though. Like Spider-Man really is one of those characters. He's like, I would say even more than Superman now. Like where he's just one of those characters that just like this character is just an American icon, you know, and people are going to pay attention to him regardless of what he's attached to.
Dustin, will you boot up the game?
No, definitely not. I don't own it. But I just think that I don't know. I think this Hawkeye thing is the funniest part. It's like someone trying to tempt you to come to either the restaurant or maybe it's your grandma saying to come over. It's like, hey, come back. We're having Brussels sprouts for dinner. And like that may work on like 1% of people, because there are people out there that love Hawkeye or love Brussels sprouts.
I love Brussels sprouts. Yeah.
See, so that would work on you. You're like the lone Hawkeye fan, right?
Sure. I probably am. Yeah.
But overall, people are just kind of like, I'm good. You know, like I've moved on. So I don't know. I don't think this is going to save this game.
No, me neither. I'll be interested to see not only the future of this game and how long they can keep it going, but also what Crystal does next. I mean, they wasted so much time on this game. They're not going to shut down or anything, but just what a waste of time, and then what a misuse of their talent to make a game like this. And what a misuse of the IP. I mean,
yeah, everything.
That's probably the worst part. Yeah. It makes you think, doesn't it make you a little more respectful now of what's going on with DC, though, with some of the WB Align developers taking so much time making Batman and making Justice League and all of that? It's like, well, okay. We don't really have, we don't really have that much to compare with, except for Insomniac. No one else is really doing anything worthwhile. So have at it.
Yeah, it's a shame because Marvel used to be like the kings of this. Like it used to be like a DC Comics game was fucking terrible. Like you would never get like Batman Begins, like I don't even know if that's a game or not, but like
there was a Batman Begins game, I think.
Yeah, probably, but like I think we know based on how little we've heard about it and how much we've heard about Spider-Man 2 or even like X-Men Origins Wolverine, that game was like unnecessarily good, and like Marvel versus Capcom, Marvel Ultimate Alliance, Marvel used to be killing it. And now DC is like, here's ever since Arkham, they've just
which is 12 years ago, which is incrable.
Yeah.
So Chris, you weren't a fan of Gotham City Imposters for the Xbox 360 arcade?
That was the shooter, right?
Yeah, that was the shooter. It's funny. I played it a little bit, but it was on the Xbox 360, and it was a first-person shooter. So I was like, why am I playing this?
Oh, it was on PS3 also.
Yeah, it was. But he's saying he could be playing Halo.
I had it on. Yeah, I didn't get a PS3 until 2012, I think. But
yeah, I remember that game. That was a weird one. Very weird.
Very strange.
Very bizarre.
All right.
Yeah, wasn't big on it.
Some more game announcements here. Number 4. This is an unusual one and an undoubtedly unexpected surprise. Publisher Square Enix has revealed that Legends of Mana, the late PS1 JRPG, is being released on PlayStation 4. Legends of Mana, which came to Western PS1s in 2000, it came to Japan in 99, was actually published by Squaresoft during its brief Western collaboration with Electronic Arts. Do people remember that, by the way? People should go look into that when Squaresoft and EA were getting together for a little while. And it's an action RPG like other games in the so-called Mana or Seiken Densetsu franchise. Game Boy's Final Fantasy Adventure, as well as SNES's Secret of Mana and the recently remade Trials of Mana, originally only on the Super Famicom, predated from 1991, 1993, and 1995, respectively. The remaster launches on June 24th and will come with HD graphics and graphical tweaks, some gameplay additions, a new soundtrack, and more. Brian Barlog wrote into us and said, hey guys, with the announcement of a Legend of Mana remaster, what other PS1 or early JRPG would you like to see get a similar treatment? I, like Colin, was far too into the genre at the time, and this game is so nostalgic for me and reminds me of the amazing summer of Threads of Fate, this and Chrono Cross dropping 3 months in a row. Great memory. That is the summer of 2000. Very good memory. Personally, I love some Suikoden remasters or go extra weeby in 2000 arms. Now you're speaking my language. Anyway, take care, guys, and keep up your amazing, consistent growth. Chris, I'll skip you on this one mercifully.
Yeah,
Dustin,
thank you.
Flex those weeb muscles for me and tell me what you want out of the PS1 role-playing game.
See, the PS1 library, though, it's a bit too early for little Dustin and RPGs. But of those games, the one that I want to play the most, looking back on it, is Final Fantasy Tactics. So that's the game. And that's an RPG, right? It's a tactical RPG. Does that count?
Yeah, it counts, but I feel like I appreciate the answer, but that's available in so many different ways.
True.
Even on PS3 and Vita and PSP, obviously. I loved his answer of Thousand Arms. I fucking loved that game. That game came out in late 99 in the West. It was published by Atlas. It was made by a studio called Red Company, and I think they still exist. And it's a RPG, but also like a really deep dating simulator. And I absolutely loved it in high school. I was super into some of the girls in it and totally weebish as I might have been, but unassociated with Wild Arms, by the way, which is a game I really love as well. So, so he called out Suikoden, by the way. I wanted to bring this up. I forgot to. Konami kind of secretly, I don't know if you guys saw this, launched a merch store, and it's fucking dope. And amongst they have a bunch of Suikoden stuff for sale, Castlevania stuff, Metal Gear stuff. And so I was interested in seeing the Suikoden shout out because I couldn't believe that they even acknowledged Suikoden existed. It's almost as if maybe we'll see more of it one day. So go.
Oh, this is awesome.
You're looking at it now. There's some good Metal Gear stuff. They have Pez shirts if you're into Pro Evolution.
What a horrible night to have a curse. That's awesome.
Yeah, they have. So they're doing some good stuff over there.
That's pretty cool.
Something related and unreal. You're mentioning merch for this old stuff. Did you know you can buy a new copy of Chrono Cross on Amazon right now for $15? Sealed.
Really?
They repressed a bunch of these games. The Final Fantasy Chronicles that includes.
That's the 2003 release. That's Dracula X.
They also did that. These are all new games from Square Enix.
That Castlevania game is especially intriguing because that is a very late game on PS1. I think that came out in 2003. Because Final Fantasy Origins and Castlevania Chronicles were amongst the last games to be released on PS1 outside of the annualized stuff.
Right.
Because I remember I bought Final Fantasy Origins when I was a freshman in college, and PS2 came out when I was a junior in high school. So there was a little bit of a separation there. Anyway, next one. This one's a little bit interesting too. We've been talking about Ninja Gaiden recently. Number 5. The recent rumors were true, as egged on by some various regional classification leaks. Ninja Gaiden is indeed making a comeback on PlayStation 4 in the form of the Ninja Gaiden Master Collection, which launches via publisher Koei Tecmo on June 10th. The collection is indeed a trilogy and includes 2005's Ninja Gaiden Sigma, 2009's Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2, and 2012's Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge. Most of the games will include their associated DLC. Note that Sigma came to PS3 in 2007 and Vita in 2012. Sigma 2 came to Vita in 2013, and Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge was initially only on Wii U, though it came to PS3 in 2013. So all 3 of these games are available elsewhere in the ecosystem. Notable since website Push Square remarks that these seem to be straight ports and in no way touched up or otherwise enhanced, which makes sense, as the Sigma games in particular were already enhancements of previous games. So what do you guys think of this? This came out of the Nintendo Direct. I think we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but
oh yeah,
are either of you amped up for a little Team Ninja action?
Aren't these games super hard?
Yes.
These were the Dark Souls before Dark Souls, where people would be like, "Oh, I beat Ninja Gaiden Black."
Ninja Gaiden. The 2004 Xbox Ninja Gaiden is an incredibly difficult game, really hard, and hard for different reasons. It's hard because it's very fast and arcadey, as opposed to being hard for being cheap, which is what the Souls games are known for being hard for. I think Ninja. It's so funny and kind of serendipitous because I was looking at my Vita games and I'm like, I have Ninja Gaiden Sigma and Sigma 2 on Vita. I never played them. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll go and play them. But I was reading about them, and the little nubs are not apparently very effective for that game. And so this announcement came at the right time. And I still feel like there's so little coming out that something like this is very appetizing to me. So do you guys remember when Razor's Edge was a Wii U game only? I remember that. I think it was a Wii U launch game, if I remember correctly.
I totally forgot that this was even a thing. That was a Wii U game.
And then they quickly got it to PS3 and 360. I remember that. It was because they were not selling any copies.
The next year.
Because Ninja Gaiden 3 came to PS3 and 360, and then Razor's Edge is the expansion version. That came to Wii U, and then they released that version later on PS3 again. So it was all fucked up.
Yeah.
It was a little annoying. But anyway, those games are coming out, and again, that is on June 10th. It would be cool if they were available a la carte. I doubt that would be the case, but here's one that I thought was weird. Number 6, in what can only be described as an unexpected move, the cult Xbox and PC exclusive zombie game Stubbs the Zombie, Rebel Without a Pulse, is coming to PlayStation 4. It launches on March 16th, and as candidly noted in its official PlayStation blog posting, the game is pretty much exactly as you last saw it when it came out in the fall of 2005. The gameplay, the graphics, and UI are untouched. There are some control tweaks, though, and trophies, of course, but that's it. This strange 50s-inspired zombie comedy game was developed by a studio called Wide Load, a team that was actually acquired by Disney before shutting down in 2014. The game they released after Stubbs, I wanted to see if you guys remember this one, was a 2008 PS3 game called Hail to the Chimp. Do you guys remember that game?
I do. I remember seeing it.
It was like a chimp, like running for office or something.
Yeah.
And Aspire, the publisher now owned by Saber Interactive as of mere days ago, is holding the IP and is therefore behind the revival. So I remember this game. I never played it. I don't know what the point of this one is, but nonetheless, Stubbs the Zombie, Rebel Without a Pulse, coming to PS4 March 16th.
I like that these games are I love goofy, those goofy games from that era. Stubbs the Zombie reminds me a lot of Destroy Humans. It's like the 50s
Definitely.
theme, and you play as a traditional kind of monster movie villain. And I never played it, But I know about it specifically because I remember I saw it at GameStop all the time. Well, it was a Software Etc. where I lived, but that's the name of the place. But it had a sticker on it that said "Made in the Halo engine," and I remember that specifically, and I was like, "Oh, weird. I guess I'll check that out eventually." And I never did, so maybe I'll check it out now.
As I know, or as I remember, Wide Load was founded by guys that worked at Bungie.
Yeah.
So, that's interesting.
So funny.
Yeah, very weird.
So weird.
It's a weird way to market because it's like the people that are looking and judging a game by the box are not going to give a fuck. Well, I mean, maybe they just see Halo,
Back then, especially. Well, yeah, getting Halo in there, but especially in 2005, no one gave a shit about what engine you were running.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was about to say, like I didn't know what an engine was at all until like maybe like 2010. Like, but you know, maybe they were smart though, because the only reason this has any nostalgia connection to me at all is because I remember seeing Halo on that box. So maybe they must have did something right, and it's getting revived for some reason. So.
Well, it's funny you brought that up only because when I was researching it, and it's, you know, on Wikipedia it says like sometimes like what engine it is, and it says engine : Halo, and I was like, oh, so there you go. Number 7. As suggested by the massive hack that hit publisher Capcom last year, leaking its lineup of upcoming games, it appears the great Ace Attorney Chronicles is indeed coming to PlayStation 4. The compilation, while in the initial leak, has been rated by the Taiwanese Games Rating Board, according to website Push Square, essentially verifying its existence. However, no other information such as timing has yet been indicated. This is fairly substantial because even though we've received both core Phoenix Wright games in the West both core Phoenix Wright series in the West on Nintendo DS, as well as various spin-offs, we never actually received the great Ace Attorney games in the West, which were released only on Japanese 3DS handhelds and phones in 2015 and 2017 respectively. So they've never seen a release outside of Japan, and having them on PS4 would be a first too. The Ace Attorney franchise began back in 2001 in Japan. It first migrated to the West in 2005. I'm a huge Phoenix Wright fan. These two games look really cool. I'm really excited about this. And if you guys are interested in more Phoenix Wright, you'll remember that in 2018, I want to say, they released the first 3 games on PS4. Might have been 2019. So you can go check that out as well. Number 8, the NPD Group has released sales data for January of 2021, giving us a glimpse at how software did across retail and digital mediums in the US. The best-selling game of the month across consoles was Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, followed by Assassin's Creed Valhalla at 2 and Miles Morales at 3. Other notable games include Immortals Phoenix Rising at 13 and Cyberpunk 2077 at 18. It's worth noting that Cyberpunk is still not available to purchase on PlayStation Store, now going on 2+ months. If you count only PS4 and PS5 games rather, the top 10 best-selling games in the US for the month were in order: Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, Miles Morales, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Madden NFL 21, Minecraft, Demon's Souls, Ghost of Tsushima, FIFA 21, NBA 2K21, and Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Not surprisingly, game hardware and software is booming in the US, even with the weakened economy, as more people are still at home. Hardware is up 144% year over year, while software is up 36% year over year. Ed Holick wrote into us and said, Colin and Chris, Dustin's here too. It's been nearly 2 months now since Cyberpunk 2077 has been absent from the PlayStation Store. This situation is pretty nuts, right? What do you think it will take for it to get it back on? If they can't get the PS4 version in an acceptable state, do you think Sony would just hold it off forever and let a PS5 SKU only on? Keep fucking that chicken. Dustin, what do you make of Cyberpunk's persistent absence from the PSN?
Man, it's so weird. I was actually in a Best Buy like 2 weeks ago, and they still had the big standee for Cyberpunk. And it's so funny because on the standee, real big, it says plays great. Also on PS4 Pro and Xbox One X. And I was like, wow, this standee has new meaning now. This arbitrary thing now is just like this weird relic. And so
it's pretty incredible that they've not let it back onto the store yet. Do you think that the PS4 iteration will come back?
I think there is so much behind this story that we do not know. I think if my gut tells me that CD Projekt Red really pissed off Sony, like badly. And so I definitely think it's possible that they're just like, if you cannot get this running at a steady, it doesn't have to be locked, but a steady 30 FPS, then fuck you, because you already pulled a fast one on us with this refund business. And, you know, maybe they'll just say, hey, yeah, like PS5 only, right?
Yeah,
so
that's what I think is going to happen. I think it's going to be a while before they get the old versions of those games running well anyway. So I think by the time they're done, they're probably going to have a native next-gen patch, and I think that's probably the only time that they're going to allow it on PlayStation Network, and I think only in PS5 format. I don't know if you're going to get it on PS4 again, which is wild. Although they might have to put it on PS4 because they still have to fulfill the promise of all the people who bought it there and downloaded it there who deserve an update.
Point. Yeah, that's an interesting
disc.
Point. Yeah, you'd have to have like mass refunds. Basically,
yeah, that would be
organized.
even worse for Sony. Yeah, it's weird. It's a weird. This is a crazy situation for sure.
I agree with you, Dustin, too. That I think there's just way more to this. Because I agree with you. I think that they kind of skirted certification, and they really. And you have to remember, Sony, even for a broken game, is still going to get 30% per game. It's $70 or $60 on last gen, so it cost them a lot of money to pull this out. But I think it was the right move for them, and it makes them look good too. Although it comes at maybe a permanent problem between CD Projekt and Sony moving forward, so we'll find out. More sales news. Number 9, other non-NPD sales data has also been revealed. For starters, word is making the rounds that Remedy Entertainment, the studio behind Max Payne, Alan Wake, and most recently Control, has had a record year of profit without releasing any new games, instead relying on Control's slow burn and positive word of mouth. In a statement, the studio's CEO, Tero Virtala, said in part, quote, "Great games have long life cycles. While we continue to support and take Control further, its development team is gradually shifting to work on a new Remedy game," end quote. As noted by website gamesindustry.biz, this project is likely a third Remedy game in concurrent development, with Crossfire already in development, as well as a co-op game codenamed Vanguard. On the other side of the ledger, however, is Japanese publisher Sega Sammy, which reported a shocking 50% year-over-year drop in operating income. Interestingly, game sales by volume were strong. The publisher sold nearly twice as many games this year as last, but back catalog titles largely drove sales, which are far lower priced. Meanwhile, website Push Square reports that Bandai Namco published JRPG Tales of Vesperia Definitive Edition, launched in early 2019 on PS4 and elsewhere, has surpassed 1 million copies sold, while Square Enix's action RPG remake Trials of Mana, which we mentioned earlier, launched on PS4 this past April, has also surpassed 1 million copies sold. So good news for RPGs. And finally, boys, a wrap up. Number 10, the official PlayStation blog reports adventure game Chicory: A Colorful Tale is coming to PS4 and PS5 later in 2021. Website IGN reports Overcooked All You Can Eat, which combined the original 2 Overcooked games on PS5, is now getting a PS4 launch and will come out on March 21st. The website also reports previously delayed medieval-inspired game Chivalry 2 will be coming to both PS4 and PS5 on June 8th. Website Gamatsu reports roguelike Dandy Ace comes to PS4 on March 25th. Unique city sim Buildings Have Feelings 2 comes to PS4 at some point in March. Exploration game Yonder the Cloud Catcher is coming to PS5 in May. Twin stick shooter Mad Devils is coming to both PS4 and PS5 at some point this summer. And RPG VED is coming to PS4 in 2022. The website also reports real-time combat game Death Crown has been delayed on PS4 and will come out in March, while RPG King's Bounty 2 on PS4 has been delayed from March until August 24th. Website Push Square reports self-explanatory game Monster Truck Championship comes to PS5 on March 11th. Dodgeball game Knockout City comes to PS4 on May 21st. Cell-shaded RPS Rico London, which looks great, people should go check that game out, is coming to PS4 and PS5 in June. Musou-style game Samurai Warriors 5 is coming to PS4 this summer. Post Office Simulator Kiwi is coming to PS4 and PS5 at some point this summer. Birds are the main character in the game Kiwi.
That's right.
Which I'm very excited about. Dinosaur slaying game Instinction comes to PS4 and PS5 in 2022, and Roadside Assistance Simulator will be coming to PS4 and PS5 in 2023. The website also reports Stardew Valley on PS4 is finally receiving the free 1.5 update that came to PS4 last year, which is a huge update to the game. So go check that out. While the Kickstarted re-release of the PSP and PS3 visual novel Sharon no Kuni, The Girl Among the Sunflowers, has been outright canceled for release on Vita. And finally, Square Enix has revealed that the re-release of its contentious 1998 PS1 JRPG Saga Frontier is coming to PS4 on April 15th. So a bunch of dates and other news there. Gentlemen, as we often, and in fact always do on Sacred Symbols, we end with 6 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from the audience at Patreon. Patreon.com/laststandmedia. Please support us over there if you like what we do. We can't do it without you. Dick Stillhard wrote in. You think that's his real name?
You imagine?
His Christian
His given name? That'd be awesome. So I recently, Richard Stillhard. So I recently tried to play on PSTV, the console like PS Vita. Well, come to find out, my memory card got corrupted. I tried using my actual Vita's memory card to see if it was just another card, but nope, PSTV started corrupting cards and now I lost all my data. Just reaching out to see if anyone has had the same issues as me and any tips in hopes of getting my data back. This sucks and honestly makes me not want to ever turn my Vita on again. Just wish these cards weren't so expensive. Anyway, keep up the great show. Do either of you have a PlayStation TV by chance? You do, right, Dozen? So have you had any corruption issues with it?
No, in fact, I've always thought it was really impressive that it handled switching my one memory card between my Vita and my PlayStation TV without any issues. So, which is not, you can't do between Vitas, so it's kind of cool. Yeah, but I've never heard of that happening. I mean, I'm guessing it's it's a niche product, and you're also dealing with a small issue. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's not a lot of the people that you could confide in with this, since there's so few people that even have a PlayStation. Confided me about your PlayStation TV memory. That's right. Son. Yeah, support form. But yeah, man, PlayStation TV. That's a hard device to get now. That's what I wanted to say too, because we get messages about this pretty often to Patreon. If you PS TVs are like, I could have bought like 1 million of these things when I saw them. I don't have any. I don't have one. But they are incredibly expensive. And the answer to the PS TV and the PS Vita question is like, the more you wait, the more expensive these things are going to get. If you find a PS TV at, let's say, $150 and you think that's too expensive, it's never going to be below $150. Dude, I got mine for $20. I remember they couldn't give them away. They couldn't give those fucking things away. I remember that. Yeah. I think I think I remember someone in the know telling me that they sold something like 50,000 of them. Really? 50,000? That's nothing. That's crazy. So I wish I bought one. I just didn't. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know what they were thinking. I don't even think I understood what it was that they were trying to sell me. Like it was it was like a thing where you can plug in your PS3 controller into like a deck of card looking thing, and then you can play your Vita games with it. And I don't think all Vita games worked on it or something, but they made some games got patches. Like I believe Killzone Mercenary got a patch so you could get around the touch controls. But yeah, because you need to slice with your finger and stuff. I love that game. Right. I mean, I bought mine exclusively so I could play Danganronpa on the TV, because Holly and I were playing it together, and she was looking over my shoulder the entire time we played the first game, and I was like, we got. And then they released it natively on PS4. And then they did that as well, way after I had played it, though. Well, sorry, Dick Stillhard. Dick's no longer hard. Brett Metalock wrote into us. Interested to see what Chris thinks of this. What are your thoughts on the new backwards compatibility feature on Xbox? With no patch, the hardware is capable of running games that were previously 30 frames at 60 frames or even 120 frames. Microsoft is doing so many awesome things with its backwards compatibility, yet PlayStation fans can't even get Bloodborne 60 frames or play PS3 games like Resistance or Infamous natively on the PS5. Chris, I thought about you when I saw this. It seems like another thing that's too good to be true, but it's true indeed. And it's actually, I was reading a little bit about it. People are impressed by it. What do you think of this new initiative from Xbox? Yeah, so like I saw this, I don't know if this is necessarily referring to just how they're handling backwards compatibility currently, or whether this is referring to specifically this new thing that they announced kind of recently about like a boosting. Yeah, I think he's talking about the boost. Yeah, the boost FPS. What's crazy is even before the boost, the backwards compatibility on Xbox is just really, really good. It's a weird situation because I would argue, obviously PlayStation's the place you want to go because that's where the exclusives are. That's where, the big new like AAA, like that's where the production value of the shit that you're going to get on PlayStation and only on PlayStation is going to be like pound for pound better than what you're probably going to get on other platforms. But at the same time, like I can't help but feel lately, especially that like the Series X right now with its backwards compatibility is just such a nice place to play. Just the fact that I can rely on everything that I start, regardless of how old it is, running at like a modern and acceptable resolution and frame rate without any patches necessary. It's really cool. Like these games play the way that I remember them playing, and only until I like look up like footage or like dust off one of my old machines and like plug them in and like actually see how they really perform do I even realize how much of an improvement that this machine just does on its own.
And I don't know why Sony is just not paying attention to this, because this is, I don't, like I said, like we've had this conversation a million times where it's like, this isn't something necessarily that's going to push units. It's not necessarily something that's going to be a focal point for somebody. It's not something that you can even really be sexy about advertising, you know? But this is a feature that just exists, and it just pretty much ensures that the baseline experience with your console is going to be pleasant. Whereas, like, I feel like with the PlayStation 5, like, as good as these graphics can be and as good as these frame rates are, generally speaking, like, it's got the UI issue that, like, we've talked about at length on this podcast. It's got, like, these weird, like, hang-ups with, like, games that we still can't run natively on the platform. It's got a store that isn't really as functional as it should be. And these are things that you think about when you're not distracted by the overwhelming amount of choice you have in your library, you know? And I don't know. I hope that they pay attention to this, because Sony especially has so much to gain from a robust backwards compatibility setup. Like, way more than Xbox has to gain. That's what blows my mind about this.
Yeah, it frustrates
PlayStation
me.
1, it's frustrating. The PS1 catalog alone is full of amazing things. And it's just like, nah, buy a PS1 Classic and play it in NTSC fucking 20 frames per second. Like,
yeah, I don't know. I can't even talk about that thing anymore. I hate
not NTSC, PAL.
Yeah, PAL.
Jesus.
Half the games are in PAL. We wish they were in NTSC. I just find it weird because it's so clear that these things are possible, as we've said so many times, on a hardware level. I don't know how much more Microsoft can do with their Xbox consoles until people realize that Sony's at least partially full of shit. Going back to the PS4 about what it can really do. Remember again, Microsoft claimed, and I believe them, that Xbox One was literally not able to play Xbox 360 games until they engineered it to do so with firmware. And I don't understand why they can do that and it's not possible elsewhere. But now it's gotten way out of control. Dustin, how are you feeling about this new news?
No, yeah, I think Xbox is definitely getting backwards compatibility right. And I mean, they should, because they're kind of missing in other areas as far as compelling software in their main launch year. So
compelling new software,
yeah. So the backwards compatibility is a big thing for them, and they are getting it right. Since I'm on the show with a huge audience, if you want Bloodborne at 60 FPS, tweet at Sony and let them know, because I mean, they already do know it, but it needs to happen. We need the Bloodborne at 60 FPS very badly.
I have this theory about Bloodborne 60 frames is that they're going to announce the sequel and then patch the game at that time. Like when they announce it's definitely, I imagine it's going to get a sequel. Yeah. That would be incredible if Bloodborne didn't get another game. There was not another Bloodborne game. And if there's going to be another one, it would be kind of soon, right? So
sure. I don't know. From Software is such at a really weird spot where they had the relationship with Sony, and then they went with Activision for Sekiro. Now they're back with Bandai Namco for Elden Ring.
Yeah.
So, and honestly, they're like, they can really do whatever they want now. They've reached that prestige of studio level. So they might not, if they don't want to do Bloodborne 2, they don't have to.
They don't have to, but I think the thing that we have to remember is that Sony can still make it themselves.
True. Yeah,
that's true.
That's definitely true.
Yeah. Whether or not that would be smart is another thing entirely.
Right.
Tim Ward wrote in and said, "Good day, Sacred Souls. As someone who did not care about trophies, I was shocked to find myself getting sucked into this metagame after getting a satisfying platinum in Astro's Playroom. It seems like that game caught a lot of people, actually.
Yeah.
I am now obsessing over my long list of games and trying to clean up old PS3 trophies." Oh, don't fall down that hole. That's what I do. "When I noticed that during the last generation transition, a lot of games had shared trophy lists. This does not seem to be the case at all for the current generational shift, and is quite annoying that I can't finish off a trophy list on a game such as Borderlands 3 and take advantage of the next gen version at the same time. As someone who has actually released games in this ecosystem, can you shed any light on this? Are separate lists a choice by the developer? Is a shared list something that used to be offered but now isn't? I find it hard to imagine that not one of the PS4 or PS5 crossover games chose to share a list if this was still an option. Thanks for your time." So I do have insight into this. So as you guys remember, and I'm sure Chris and Dustin remember, and the listeners remember, when Vita came out, a lot of games were released on PS3 and Vita, and they would share lists. And then people were kind of like, well, why? We want to earn the platinum, or we want to earn the trophies twice. And so Sony started letting companies on a buy case basis sever their trophies. And people realized over time was that there's no reason to actually keep them together. The original working assumption was that people didn't want them split up. And then what they realized later on clearly is that people actually want them split up. So when we released Habroxia 2 and Twinbreaker, we had the option to fold our trophy list together. We actually wanted to uncollapse the trophies as much as possible. We have, I think, 8 lists because we have like the physical list and the Japanese list and the European list. We did that by design. We didn't have to do that. A lot of games don't do that. We did that because it's good for sales. And people that like trophies and want to buy the game over and over again, please do. So I think that has something to do with it. And you'll also have to remember with PS4, PS5, that a lot of people are enjoying, unfortunately, the fruits of what we used to call the sound shapes trick, which was like they're uploading their Borderlands 3 save and just getting all of the trophies again. And people like that. But for people like me and you, Tim, we don't like that very much. That's why with Borderlands 3, when I downloaded it on PS5 and realized it had a new list, I immediately deleted it, as I said a few weeks ago, because I didn't want to play. I don't want to play that way either. But you have to understand that we're kind of in the minority now. And even weird games that have cross-buy, like Cyber Shadow, have 2 lists, PS4 and PS5. And I'm noticing that now with Puyo Puyo Tetris, which is on both as well. So it's a money thing. And for most people, they like the trophies. But for people like us, it just scratches poorly at our OCD. So Tim, I'm sorry to give you that bad news.
Isn't, real quick, the PS5 games are their own separate like entity. I don't know, their own SKU isn't the right word, but like, isn't there a technical reason, specifically like PS3, PS4, Vita, right, those can all share, but like PS5, there's a very specific thing where it's like, that's why you see the weird save transfer issues. Right, but what I'm saying is that we don't. What I'm saying is that we don't know if that's true. We have no games have chosen, as far as we know, to choose to share trophy lists, because we haven't seen a game come out after PS5 has come out that has combined its trophy lists. But true. But as far as I understand, that's an option. You can do that. I just think that there's no reason to do that. You know, right? That's my argument. Because there's only, remember, PS5 has what, 40 games? Something like that right now. There's like not that many games, so we have to give it more time. I hear what you're saying, but I think people are just losing sight of the fact that it was, in other words, it was actually bad business to not split up the list. And if people realized that earlier, they wouldn't have done that. You know, I think that's what we're finding out. All right, I wanted to talk about this. We hadn't really gotten a chance to talk about Nintendo. Although Rob Kavazna writes in with a little bit of a PlayStation twist to it. He says, "Dear Captain Colin and Commander Chris and Skipper Dustin, Nintendo had a direct on Wednesday and it left me longing for a good old state of play." Have we ever had a good old state of play? No. Surely PlayStation had enough going on to provide fans with a nice little info dump, right? MLB The Show and Returnal are right around the corner, and some more info would be great. Also, want to stay hyped for some smaller games supposedly coming out this year. I want to see more of Kenna, Stray, and Little Devil Inside. Hell, I'd even be excited to get more information about Chris's most anticipated game of the year, Goodbye Volcano High. When do you boys think we'll see another state of play? So I want to split this up into 2 questions. Yeah. The first thing is, what did we think of the Nintendo Direct? I didn't watch it. I only read the news, so I don't have any impressions on the show. But Chris, did you watch?
Yeah, I watched it. Yeah, I didn't even anticipate. I didn't know that it was happening. Like, I woke up, I looked on Twitter, and I saw conveniently that like, oh, a Nintendo Direct is happening in 3 minutes, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'll watch this because I have nothing else to do.
First one since 2019, apparently. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I had no idea. I thought for sure they had done one before, but I guess not. But yeah, no, I watched it, and I couldn't believe how bad it was. Like, and I got a lot of heat and support for this because obviously Nintendo fans are very, very vocal.
Yes, I was one. I know. I remember.
Yeah, and yeah, some people were like, "Oh, what do you mean is great or whatever?" But like, I couldn't believe just how underwhelmed I was, despite having literally no expectations. Like they revealed a new Smash character. It was like another anime sword fighter, just like the last one. And it's like,
who is it? Really, I don't even think I saw that. Who is the fighter?
Somebody from Xenoblade, Pyra or Pyra.
Whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. Whatever. It's, by the way, yet another character from a franchise that's already in the game. So it's like, that's cool, neat. I guess I'm just never gonna get my Crash Bandicoot, God forbid. But So that was bothersome, like right off the bat, and they started the show off with that, and then like it was just anime, Fall Guys, anime, and they did the Super Mario Golf thing, which was cool or whatever. Yeah. Like the Mario sports games are fun.
Definitely, I love Mario Golf.
But this is where we found out about like Stubbs the Zombie, which was obviously the showstopper.
And and the Square Enix games too were announced there.
Like Project whatever the.
Yeah, we'll talk about that next. Don't jump ahead. Project Triangle Strategy.
No, we won't. But no, I didn't like it at all. They ended it. This was the most egregious thing. I know this is a PlayStation show, but like I cannot not talk about this. This is the first Nintendo Direct in like 2 years, basically. They last talked about Breath of the Wild 2 years ago. It is currently Zelda's 35th anniversary. People are starving for information on this new Zelda game. The guy who was in the initial like reveal trailer for Breath of the Wild, how they have the Japanese guy, he introduces the show and he shows you the trailer. He shows up again and he says, "Hey, bet you wanted to hear about Breath of the Wild 2. Sorry. Nothing. We got nothing. Here's Skyward Sword."
which is a pretty contentious game.
It's like widely considered to be like the least good 3D Zelda game. Like I think from what I've seen online.
No, I think that's. I don't know. I think that's definitely true. I mean, Twilight Princess is up there, but yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I'm sure. By the way, I'm sure people love that game. By the way,
we gave it a 10 at IGN. I remember, which was absurd. But yeah,
wild. But like, yeah, it's Zelda, so you're always operating from a scale of like pretty good to great, and like I would argue that like I haven't played Skyward Sword, but my guess is that like it's probably pretty good. But my God, like imagine Cory Barlog after like 3 years of silence on God of War comes out and says, "Bet you guys are expecting God of War because I'm the God of War guy. Here's God of War Ascension remastered." You'd be like, "What? What?" Like that's such a it's such a missed opportunity. And like I get they don't have anything, and like if they can't show it, then that's fine. But like if you're just gonna show Skyward Sword again, just don't have the guy up there to introduce it. Don't make it seem like it's going to be this big thing by having somebody there to like usher in this like new wave of like really cool content. It's Skyward Sword again. Treat it like Stubbs the Zombie. You showed the trailer for Stubbs, you moved on. Showed the trailer for Skyward Sword, you moved on. That's how it should have went. But I couldn't believe that they got away with that. That they were just like, they brought the Zelda guy out there to tell you there's no Zelda.
It's own. It's a classic Square Enix style own, if anything.
I like for a second, like I was looking at him and like every time I blinked, his face would change into Don Matrix.
Whoa.
Like it was like I was hallucinating, and I was like, whoa, this is like a wild. They let this happen. Like I don't know. I couldn't believe it.
Dustin, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, it was pretty bad. I mean, here's the thing. People get these expectations for Nintendo Directs that are always out of control, right? We can acknowledge that.
Before you continue, I agree. I don't think it was out of control to expect Breath of the Wild 2 news in some form.
Right.
Especially with the way that they teased it.
And that's the thing, is it's like, if you don't have a Direct since, I think, what was it? Was it E3 2019 was the last main Direct? There may have been one after that, but
probably something like that, yeah.
Anyway, you go silent for so long, and then you come out and you're like, we have 50 minutes. You at least got to bring a little heat. You know what I mean? A little something, right? And the highlight of the event was, okay, so there was Splatoon 3, which they arguably didn't really show anything that sets it apart from any other Splatoon game. Mm-hmm. Mario Golf, which I'm very excited for, but again, it is a Mario sports game.
First Mario Golf game on a console since 2003. Unbelievable.
Dude, I'm so excited for that. But anyway, you think they would have just brought like one thing. So it's one of those things where I think expectations were high, and they also just did not really deliver after having people wait so long. But maybe we're just all entitled. I don't know.
No, we're expected. Listen, the Switch is a cool machine. It's got great games on it. People like. but we're expected to pretend that Nintendo has this litany of this never-ending cascade of games coming to the unit. It's never been true. It's not been true. It exists for basically 5 games, and those games sell huge numbers. And if people are happy with that, that's fine. Plus a pretty robust indie selection and some poor ports of last gen games. I mean, that's what the Switch is, and that's fine because they live and die by their 1 or 2 first party games a year. But it just, as a games consumer, that's just not appetizing to me. And I was surprised just by Nintendo obviously gets a pass on almost everything. So I was actually surprised by how negative the reaction to it was. But to the question Rob asked too, Chris, I'll go to you. Are you hankering for a state of play?
Not really. Like this reminded me why I don't care about state of play. Really, you know what I mean? It's just this is what I'm saying. This is what I've been saying for a while now. Where it's like we need the E3s, man. We need like one day where just everybody agrees to come with what they think is their heat, right? And then they come. And then usually, like every year that we had a functioning E3, like a normal E3 that went off like normal, chances are everybody walked away from that E3 with at least one thing that they were pretty excited for, or one thing that they were looking forward to, because everybody was bringing what they perceived to be their A game. It wasn't some dude who was out there going, it wasn't like that one weird Bethesda conference that they had where they were just like, we're a company. And that was basically the entire the entire conference. This reminded me of just like, man, they're just, it feels like they're just forcing these out when they don't have to. Like, why did we need 50 minutes to lead into Splatoon 3? You know, like it's the same question we asked in a different way about the Resident Evil. Yeah, no, exactly. That's one of the worst ones that I've seen too. And that's, by the way, this is the thing that's confusing to a lot of people, where it's like the new Resident Evil looks great. Resident Evil as a series is awesome. But like that show is dumb and unnecessary. And the same thing is true for this. Like, it's not that there weren't games that I saw that didn't entice me or didn't interest me. There was one that, like, what was that one with the assassins in heaven or whatever the hell? I thought that was cool, you know? I'm looking forward to playing Stubbs. I don't know what the hell Stubbs is, you know? But when you go into an event like this, you expect that they're going to bring something that has everybody unanimously excited. If PlayStation had like this day where they had, imagine a state of play after 2 years of silence and it's 50 minutes long. You know, you're expecting something there. Like, you would expect God of War. You would expect Horizon 2. You would expect something there that would get everybody excited, even people who don't necessarily care about those franchises, because even those people understand how important those franchises are to the platform. There are plenty of people who like will go to who will watch an Xbox E3 event who don't care about Halo, but they know that when Halo's there, that's a successful showing, because that means that they have something that is important to the platform. And this is one of those times where I was just like, I don't know if Splatoon 3 is all that important to the platform. I just don't. No. I don't know if another anime sword fighter in Smash is all that great. I would, if they had just put Crash Bandicoot in, I would have been happy. That's all they had to do. That's my bar, by the way. That's my bar for this
Be event. Interested to see if Activision will let that happen. I imagine they would.
I don't see why they wouldn't. That'd be amazing.
Well, Dustin, you had brought up earlier Project Triangle Strategy, or maybe it was you, Chris, that brought it up. I can't remember. It was only 5 minutes ago. I'm shot. As my sister always says to me, I'm 1,000% shot 100% of the time. Channing Wireman wrote in and said, "Hey there, guys. I know it's not PlayStation related, but Colin, please tell me you've seen the announcement for Project Triangle Strategy. Despite the god-awful name, it looks fantastic. I really dig the Octopath-looking visuals, and I'm always looking for something to the Final Fantasy to fill the Final Fantasy Tactics void in my soul. Do either of you have any thoughts on the game? I've dusted off my Switch to try the demo, and I'm quite pleased with what I've played so far." So a lot of people tweeted at me about this. I think our understanding of Final Fantasy Tactics, like, not everything is Final Fantasy Tactics. I don't really see this as a Final Fantasy Tactics style game. It feels much more Octopath-like. Certainly the gameplay is similar. It looks really cool. I don't know that Octopath Traveler was as good as a lot of people hoped it would be. And so I'm not really... In fact, I was reading a little bit about the game, and it's actually worse received than I thought it was. Which was surprising because I thought people really liked it, but I think people soured on it after a while. Of course, its name is completely absurd, but it looks great. I'm excited that these games are coming out. Dustin, talk Weeby to me.
Yeah, I think this game looks interesting. I think the big thing about it that I did like is that they were really kind of emphasizing it during the direct how there are consequences, like different decisions, story related decisions. Like there's a lot of branching narrative stuff that go well beyond just the whole tactics gameplay. But I don't know. I don't really want to play this game on my Switch, if I'm being honest.
That's
and
how
they
I feel
eventually released Octopath on PC. So
yeah, still not a PS4 and Xbox. I'm kind of surprised by that. Nintendo published it, I think, or might have helped fund it, but that hasn't stopped tons of games from migrating at some point. So
sure, yeah.
We'll
so
see.
I don't know. I have the demo downloaded. I'm hoping to check that out in the next day or two. So we'll see.
Yeah, I do like how they came out with a demo right away.
Yeah, that is nice, especially because the game's not coming out for 2 years, so it's essentially a beta, or not 1 year. I forget we're in 2021, but no, it's cool.
I'm looking at.
I like the look of it. The art style of Octopath is like really, really enticing to me.
Definitely, because it's a really beautiful, pixelized. These beautiful. I just feel like pixel graphics are so beautiful, but you still have the 3D render that gives the game depth, and it's cool. I actually just looked up Octopath. By the way, I was right. It was published by Square in Japan, but Nintendo published it everywhere else. So Square owns the game, so they could bring it to PS4 whenever they wanted. All right, the final one comes from Stephen Forgio, and I'm interested to see what you guys think of this. Although I think you might both. Well, you guys are both kind of in the right age group, I guess. Hey boys, hope all is well. This question is geared more towards Chris, since he watched G4 growing up. Any thoughts on G4 bringing back Adam Sessler and Kevin Pereira for X-Play and Attack of the Show? As much as I would love it to recapture the mid to late aughts of gaming culture, it'll be produced in a completely different era of video games culture that I feel has only gotten worse as time goes on. As much as I would love to have G4 come back as a staple, I don't think the audience is there, and I doubt G4 will make a noticeable dent in the streaming culture we have today with a nostalgia play like this. Any comment on this? Loving Last Stand's new year of content already, with Defining Duke providing an added bonus to an already valuable service. Thank you. That is, of course, our Xbox podcast. Keep up the great work. Dustin, talk to me about, what do you think? We mentioned, I think a few weeks ago or whatever, G4 had been teasing that it's coming back. I find this incredibly strange. I know that people have deep nostalgia for G4. I was a little too old for it, I think. But this seems, first of all, I'm no fan. Adam Sessler is one of the most unlikable people in the modern games industry. That's number one. It just is what it is. He's totally fallen off a deep end. Kevin Pereira, I've met several times. He was always really nice to me. I haven't seen him in many years, but I just feel like this is a weird nostalgia play, because it's like, who's really nostalgic for G4 when you have all of these different options? I feel like this thing is going to crash and burn.
Yeah. I've watched G4 like once or twice at a friend's house growing up, because I never had cable in my house. So I think the thing for me, Colin, you already hit the nail on the head, is that most of my knowledge about Adam Sessler is what I've seen him, how he presents himself on Twitter. We'll say that. He may be a different person in real life, because Twitter isn't real life, but we have to go off that, right?
He was a different person in real life. I mean, he definitely was, but I don't know.
So seeing the way he behaves does not entice me to watch this show, because I'm with you that I think that he seems to be a very mean-spirited person overall. And so, yeah, I don't know. I don't know why you would try to recapture that. We live in the YouTube era now, which is this show going to be on cable, or is it just YouTube?
No, G4, I think, became Esquire channel. I think it's only going to be YouTube and podcast, because I think they lost their space.
I just don't understand the idea of creating a new, more mainstream gaming outlet when all of them are dying right now.
No,
right?
it makes no sense. Chris, I know you have a little bit more fandom. What do you think?
This would be like GoldenEye coming back exactly as it was, trying to compete with like modern shooters, like G4 did a lot for early internet content. Like I think it inspired a lot of people. I think a lot of great people came from G4 and started a lot of like really cool endeavors on YouTube. Like I know a lot of the G4 guys went to Machinima and made Machinima into the huge thing that it was back in the late 2000s, early 2010s. And obviously that's a controversial company and all that, but there were some really talented creators who were associated with Machinima at that time. And I feel like, I don't know, this is like the dinosaur kind of coming back and being like, I'm still around, guys. And it's like, we've kind of evolved, you know? Like, and I loved G4. Like, I watched it all the time. I watched X Play. And as much as I dislike Adam Sessler now, like, I do have a lot of nostalgia for X Play. And like, I can turn on an episode of X Play now and watch it and enjoy it, because I remember that time and the culture at that time and just how unique it was. But it's not really unique anymore. Like, video games are a lot more mainstream than they were before. We've got television shows based on our video games now, and they're popular television shows that people are talking about. You know, this isn't like this secret interest that you kind of had to like keep to yourselves and your friends. You know, this is just part of our culture now. And I don't know if G4 can really exist in that space if it's going to continue to play at the same nostalgia if it's going to play at the same vibe that it used to, that it was counterculture, because it can't be, because it's the exact culture that YouTube was counter to.
Yeah, that's well put. It's like a weak facsimile.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, like I like Kevin Pereira, I like Attack of the Show. I love all those creators, really, like genuinely. Like they're all talented people. Even Adam Sessler, for his annoying as his Twitter rampages have been, he's blocked me. He's had me blocked for years. He did a lot of great shit on G4, and you know, that's worth something. And you know, I hope it works out for them. But
yeah,
like,
the market will determine.
Yeah,
whether this survives.
I don't see it, and I'm exactly in the demographic of people who would be excited for this thing, and I just don't see the real purpose. I feel like we've moved on, and I feel like we've moved on to better things, to be perfectly real. I remember there was a scene I remember there was a show on G4 that was just video game cutscenes. Cinematech, I think it was called, and like what? Like, you can't. Just look that up on YouTube now. Like, it's some guy named like Hulk probably has like some fucking
like every Xenosaga.
Yeah, he has every Dragon Ball Z Budokai intro on his YouTube channel at 480p, and that's probably like a better way to watch it anyway, because it's nostalgic. But yeah, I don't know.
All right, well, that's all we have for this episode of Sacred Symbols Plus. Dustin, do you have any closing comments?
I don't know what's for dinner tonight. I've gotten to a cycle where I've been ordering pizza once a week, and I know that it's probably killing me, but I'm feeling that that's it.
Cheers.
Thoughts?
No, I think you should do what feels good in the moment.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's always
ridiculous. I order, when I lived in New York, I ordered pizza like maybe 3 times a week.
Oh, hell yeah.
Pizza's good. Pizza's a good thing.
Delicious.
Chris, do you have any closing comments? I'm sorry, Dustin. Wait, what did you say, Dustin?
I was saying I needed to survive.
Oh, okay. That's enough
it.
of you. That's enough out of you, Chris.
I'm really tired. I think I might go to sleep. I think I might just straight up go to sleep.
Are you tired? Like, are you tired? Like people on Twitter get tired. Like, I'm so tired. I'm exhausted because something. Or are you? Really
I am
tired?
Sincerely, like, if I closed my eyes for an extended period of time, I would pass away probably.
Oh.
So.
All right. Well,
you're done.
Then I guess we should let you go.
Done.
All right.
So.
Thank you all out there for your love, kindness, and support of our show. We appreciate you very much. Support us on Patreon, patreon.com/laststandmedia, free feeds, YouTube, all the rest. We'll have news on merch next week. Promise. All right. Love you guys. Goodbye.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC, and is recorded from Central Virginia and Burbank, California, USA. The show was conceived by, is written by, and is produced by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is Chris Raygun Maldonado. Sacred Symbols' executive producer is Dustin Furman, and the show is edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer support level or higher on Patreon, and we're grateful for your kindness and generosity.